The desert sun beats down on two youths locked in a silent contest of wills. Khalid ibn al-Waleed and a tall boy, his nephew and cousin, circle each other, muscles coiled like desert serpents. There is no hatred here, only fierce rivalry. In the wrestling pits of Arabia, strength is the currency of manhood. Khalid's eyes narrow, his opponent is left-handed, a subtle advantage. With a sudden twist, Khalid throws him. A sickening crack echoes. The tall boy's leg snaps grotesquely. Horror floods Khalid as he stares at his injured friend. This boy would heal, wrestle again, and remain Khalid's rival in all things. His name? Umar ibn al-Khattab, a man destiny would weave deeply into Khalid's life. Born into nobility, Khalid was whisked from his mother as an infant, a custom among Quraysh's elite. Bedouin foster parents raised him in the desert's harsh embrace, forging his legendary endurance. The arid winds sculpted his resilience. The open sands became his home. At 5, he returned to Makkah, bearing only faint pockmarks from a childhood bout of smallpox, a minor flaw on a ruggedly handsome face that would later stir both admiration and turmoil. As a chief's son, Khalid understood his privilege. His father, al-Walid, the unique, led the Bani Makhzum, the warrior clan of Quraysh. From him, Khalid inherited more than noble bloodlines tracing back to Prophet Ibrahim. Al-Walid drilled into him the Arab virtues: courage, combat mastery, toughness, and generosity. Under his stern gaze, Khalid mastered horsemanship, not merely riding trained stallions, but breaking wild colts into disciplined warhorses. He wielded every weapon, spear, lance, bow, and sword, with lethal grace. Yet the lance and sword became extensions of his soul. The sword, Khalid learned, was the weapon of chivalry, demanding closeness to death, where survival hinged on skill, not distance. By manhood, Khalid stood over 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, lean, his body a map of hardened muscle. A full beard framed his face. His charisma and martial prowess made him a celebrated figure in Makkah. Wealth shielded him from toil, but it birthed extravagance. He spent lavishly, giving freely to supplicants, a generosity that would one day court disaster. Al-Walid, though wealthy, embodied Quraysh's democratic spirit. He worked as a blacksmith, butcher, and trader, sending caravans to Syria. Khalid joined these journeys, walking the markets of Roman cities, meeting Copts, Persians, and Ghassanid Arabs. Between hunts and poetry recitals with friends, Umar, Amr ibn al-As, and his cousin Abu Jahl, al-Walid imparted his first lessons in war: speed across deserts, surprise attacks, relentless pursuit. War soon consumed Khalid's thoughts, an obsession that bordered on prophecy. He dreamed of battles and blood, of being the unchallenged champion. Unbeknownst to him, destiny shared his visions. Khalid ibn al-Walid, son of a chief, master of the sword, and heir to a legacy of conquest, was ready for his hour. But that hour would dawn in a Mecca unravelling. As Khalid honed his skills, a solitary figure walked the city's streets at night, Muhammad ibn Abdullah of the noble Banu Hashim. Troubled by the decay festering in Arab society, he grieved the burial of infant daughters alive by desert tribes, the injustice to the weak, and the 360 idols defiling the Kaaba, once built by Ibrahim for Allah alone. Hubal, Uzzah, and Lat now ruled, their stone limbs draped in gold. Yet beneath this polytheism pulsed a paradox. The Quraysh swore by Allah as creator while worshipping lesser gods as his children. In August 610, inside a cave near Mecca, Muhammad received a command: read. 3 times the voice demanded, then revealed, read in the name of your Lord who created, taught man what he knew not. Revelation had begun. For 3 years Muhammad preached quietly. Then, ordered to proclaim openly, he summoned his clan. Who will stand with me? He asked. Only Ali, a boy of 13, answered. Laughter filled the room, but Ali's pledge was the first thread of a new tapestry. In the house of al-Walid, Khalid witnessed his father's outrage. Prophethood for Muhammad, al-Walid fumed, while I, Quraysh's elder, get nothing. Khalid's cousin, Amr ibn Hisham, called Abu Jahl, father of ignorance for his hatred of Islam, spearheaded the opposition. When diplomacy failed, Abu Sufyan, al-Walid, Abu Jahl, and Abu Lahab unleashed persecution. Vagrants hurled filth at Muhammad. Abu Jahl tortured slaves like Bilal, the Abyssinian, left under scorching rocks until he gasped, "Allah is one." Al-Walid's bitterness hardened. He offered his son Amara to Abu Talib, Muhammad's uncle, in exchange for the Prophet's life. "Give us Muhammad to kill," the Quraysh demanded. Abu Talib refused. "You ask me to surrender my nephew for slaughter? Never." Khalid watched as desperation birthed cruelty. When the Prophet challenged the wrestler Rakana, defeating him 3 times, the man broke his oath to embrace Islam. Yet Muhammad prayed not for vengeance but conversion. "O Allah, strengthen Islam with Umar or Abu Jahl." Umar heeded the call, becoming Islam's 40th believer, but Abu Jahl's heart remained stone. After Abu Talib's death in 619 Common Era, the Quraysh closed in. Persecution intensified. Muhammad's followers slipped away to Medina. In September 622, the Quraysh plotted assassination. Muhammad escaped, migrating to Medina with Abu Bakr. The era of persecution ended. On his deathbed, al-Walid summoned Khalid and his brothers. 3 tasks: avenge his blood feud with Khuza'ah, reclaim debts from Saqif, and kill Abu Uzayha, the man who dishonoured al-Walid's daughter. Khalid's brother Hisham fulfilled the last, slaying Abu Uzayha a year later, nearly igniting a tribal war until Abu Sufyan intervened. Khalid remained in Mecca, trading in Syria, fathering 2 sons, Sulayman and Abdur Rahman. But the drums of war were beating. At Badr in 624, the Muslims crushed the Quraysh. Abu Jahl died. Khalid's brother Walid was captured, ransomed for 4,000 dirhams. But upon release, Walid embraced Islam, choosing Medina over Mecca. Khalid's world was fracturing. The Quraysh thirsted for revenge. Abu Sufyan vowed, "I shall launch an expedition to annihilate Muhammad." Khalid, his sword unbloodied at Badr, would meet his destiny on the slopes of Uhud. The air in Mecca crackled with vengeance. Abu Sufyan, commanding the Quraysh war machine, poured 50,000 dinars, the entire profit from the Syrian caravan, into assembling an army unlike Arabia had seen. 3,000 warriors, 700 armoured, 200 cavalry, and 3,000 camels. 15 women, led by Hind, her father, uncle, brother, and son slain at Badr, joined the march, their litters a grim reminder of blood debts. "By Allah," Hind swore, "I will taste Hamza's liver." On March 22nd, 625 Common Era, the armies faced each other at Uhud. The Prophet Muhammad, heeding his companions' insistence to fight outside Medina, deployed 700 men. His strategy was masterful. Archers anchored the left flank on Mount Ainain, commanded never to abandon their post. "Even if you see us winning," he ordered, "do not join us." Khalid, leading the Quraysh right cavalry, launched probing attacks. Each time, disciplined arrow volleys forced him back. The battle erupted in duels. Ali felled Talha, the Quraysh standard-bearer. Hamza carved through foes until Washi, an Abyssinian slave bribed by Hind, hurled a fatal javelin. Then came the pivot, the moment Khalid had waited for. Seeing Muslim victory, the archers abandoned Ainain for plunder. Khalid seized the opening. With Ikrima's cavalry, he stormed the hill, slaughtered the few remaining archers, and wheeled into the Muslim rear. Panic spread. Hind's shrill cry, "Defenders of our homes, if you advance, we embrace you," spurred the Quraysh infantry to rally. The Muslims were trapped between Khalid's cavalry and Abu Sufyan's infantry. The Prophet's position became a slaughterhouse. Arrows rained, stones shattered his lower teeth and gashed his forehead. Ibn Kamiya's sword struck his helmet, driving chain links into his cheek. As the Prophet fell, a cry tore through the ranks. "Muhammad is dead!" Chaos followed, but Khalid's triumph was incomplete. On a rocky bluff, Ka'b bin Malik's voice thundered, "Rejoice! The messenger of Allah lives!" Umar and survivors rallied. Khalid attempted a final assault, but the terrain broke his cavalry's charge. The Prophet, bloodied yet defiant, declared, "By my Lord, I would fight them again this instant." As the Quraysh withdrew, Hind exacted her gruesome oath. She mutilated Hamza's corpse, carving out his liver and donning a necklace of severed ears and noses. Abu Sufyan, surveying the field, shouted, "Hubal is supreme." Umar retorted, "Allah is greater." The exchange ended with a bitter promise. "We meet at Badr next year." 70 Muslims lay dead. Khalid had killed 3 men, his first blood for the Quraysh, yet the victory was hollow. The archers' disobedience had turned triumph into tragedy. That night the Prophet's whisper echoed in the dust. Sufficient for us is Allah, and what a good protector he is. The Quraysh would not return to Badr. As drought parched the land, Abu Sufyan broke his vow. But a new storm gathered, one that would force Khalid to confront an enemy no sword could pierce, a ditch-ringing Medina. In 627 Common Era, Medina braced for annihilation. Huyay bin Akhtab, exiled Jewish leader of Banu Nadir, marched to Mecca with a lethal proposition: crush Muhammad, or Islam will strangle your trade routes. Abu Sufyan, haunted by Uhud's incomplete victory, rallied 10,000 warriors, Quraysh infantry, Ghatfan cavalry, and desert tribes for a final siege. Khalid, now a seasoned commander, readied his horsemen. But Medina had a shield. Salman the Persian, a Muslim convert, proposed a stratagem alien to Arabia: a trench. For 6 days, 3,000 Muslims, hypocrites grumbling, believers inspired by the Prophet's swinging pickaxes, dug feverishly. The trench stretched 5.5 miles, anchored between volcanic hills and lava fields, leaving only the south exposed. The Prophet's genius was geometric: force a frontal assault, nullify cavalry, protect the city. Winter's chill bit deep as the Confederates arrived. Khalid's squadron probed the defences, finding no weakness. For 10 days, arrows flew across the ditch, a futile stalemate. Hunger gnawed at Medina. Hypocrites sneered, "Muhammad promises Rome's treasures but cannot feed us." Then came betrayal. Banu Qurayza, the last Jewish tribe in Medina, broke their pact. Secretly they allied with Abu Sufyan, promising to attack the Muslims' unprotected rear. The Prophet countered with Nuaym bin Masud, a Ghatfan chief turned covert Muslim. Nuaym's whispers poisoned the alliance. To the Jews, demand Quraysh hostages lest they abandon you. To the Quraysh, the Jews plot to sell your nobles to Muhammad. When Abu Sufyan ordered a coordinated assault, Banu Qurayza refused. No hostages? No Sabbath fighting. The Confederates unravelled. Frustration ignited Khalid's boldness. On March 15th, 627 Common Era, he and Ikrimah charged a narrow trench sector west of Mount Zubab. 7 Quraysh horsemen, led by the colossal warrior Amr bin Abdul-Wud. "I am invincible," he roared, leaped the ditch. Ali answered the challenge. In a duel etched in legend, Ali spared Amr after throwing him, only to strike the death blow when the giant attacked again. The Muslims' cry of "Allahu Akbar" echoed off the hills. Khalid pressed another assault, crossing the ditch with a squadron. But Medina's defenders held firm. Then, on March 18th, a supernatural storm struck. Winds shredded tents, extinguished fires, and howled through the Confederate camp. Abu Sufyan, despairing, mounted his camel. "This is no abode for us. The Jews betrayed us. The storm ravages us. I depart." Under cover of gales, the Confederates fled, Khalid and Amr bin al-As guarding their retreat. The siege ended without a decisive battle. 4 Muslims and 4 Confederates lay dead. But the true victory belonged to the Prophet's strategy, the trench that broke armies, the diplomacy that shattered alliances, and the storm that scattered kings. Khalid rode back to Mecca, his cavalry unbeaten yet humbled by a ditch. Mecca's power was broken. Yet Khalid, the unyielding swordsman, would soon face a battle no trench could defend against, the war within his own soul. The taste of dust and defeat lingered as Khalid returned to Mecca. For 2 years, no major clashes erupted between the Quraysh and Muslims, only the bitter memory of Raji, where Muslim envoys were ambushed and tortured. Qubayb bin Adi's brutal execution haunted the city, 40 boys spearing him while Ikrimah watched, stone-faced. Yet Khalid's mind churned with deeper questions. Why had the Muslims held firm at Uhud against impossible odds? How had Muhammad outmaneuvered 10,000 men with a ditch? The answer struck him like a desert lightning bolt. Islam was truth. In early 628 Common Era, the Prophet moved toward Mecca with 1,400 pilgrims, sacrificial camels in tow. Abu Sufyan, fearing invasion, sent Khalid with 300 cavalry to block the mountain pass at Qura al-Ghamim. But the Prophet's genius outflanked him, taking hidden trails through Saniyatul Marah, bypassing Khalid entirely. At Hudaybiyah, the Muslims camped. Skirmishes flared, but the Prophet's intent was peace. After tense negotiations, the Truce of Hudaybiyah was sealed. 10 years of ceasefire, permission to pilgrimage in 629 Common Era, and a controversial clause: Muslim defectors to Mecca would not be returned. Quraysh defectors to Medina would. Umar raged at the terms, but the Prophet saw the unseen, psychological victory, future conversions, and eyes within Mecca. Khalid, observing Muhammad's statesmanship, felt his resistance crumble. He is neither poet nor sorcerer, he confided to Ikrimah. His message is divine. Ikrimah recoiled. After Muslims killed your kin? Khalid's reply was final. That was the age of ignorance. When Abu Sufyan confronted him, Khalid stood firm. Muhammad is our kin. Why not follow him? That night Khalid gathered his sword and horse. On the road to Medina he met two unlikely companions, Amr bin al-As, the cunning strategist, and Uthman bin Talha, son of Uhud's standard-bearer. All three once bitter enemies of Islam, now united in quest for truth. On May 31st, 629 Common Era, they stood before the Prophet in Medina. Khalid entered first. I submit to Allah and His Messenger, he declared. The Prophet welcomed him warmly, absolving past battles. Ikrimah's warning echoed. The Quraysh seek Muhammad's blood. But here was Khalid, embraced as a brother. At Maimuna's house, he shared a meal with the Prophet, even savouring roast lizard, a Bedouin delicacy the Prophet declined but permitted. Khalid, age 43, breathed the air of a new dawn. Yet one shadow remained. Umar ibn al-Khattab, the boy whose leg he'd broken, now Muslim number 40, a rival in faith as in wrestling. 3 months later, Khalid's sword would be tested not against old rivals, but the might of Rome. The sands of Muta awaited. September 629 Common Era. The murder of a Muslim envoy near Muta ignited fury in Medina. Shurabil bin Amr, a Ghassanid chieftain, had violated the sacred immunity of diplomacy. The Prophet assembled 3,000 men. His orders were clear: avenge the envoy, offer Islam to the people. If they refuse, fight. He named 3 commanders: Zayd bin Haritha first. If fallen, Jafar bin Abi Talib. If Jafar fell, Abdullah bin Rawaha. If all 3 perish, the Prophet declared, let the army choose its leader. At Marn, chilling news halted the march. Emperor Heraclius had amassed 100,000 Romans and 100,000 Ghassanid allies in Jordan. Panic flickered. Abdullah bin Rawaha stepped forward, sword raised. Men, we fight for faith, not numbers. Victory or martyrdom, both are glory. His words steeled the Muslims. They marched north. Near Muta, the armies collided. Zayd, bearing the white standard, charged into the Byzantine Ghassanid tide. He fell swiftly. Jafar seized the banner, fighting until his right hand was severed. Clutching the standard with his left, he fell, body pierced by 90 wounds. Abdullah bin Rawaha grabbed the banner only to be cut down moments later. Chaos engulfed the Muslims. Thabit bin Arqam lifted the bloodied standard, shouting, "Choose a commander." His eyes locked on Khalid. "Take it. You are worthy." Khalid grasped the banner. His first command, attack. Leading the charge, he shattered enemy lines, broke 9 swords, and killed Malik bin Zafila, the Ghassanid commander, with his 10th. As dusk fell, Khalid ordered a tactical withdrawal, preserving the army under cover of night. In Medina, the returning force faced scorn. Fugitives, crowds jeered, throwing dust. The Prophet silenced them. They are not fugitives. They will fight again if Allah wills. Then his voice rang clear. Khalid is the sword of Allah. The title etched itself into history, a testament to the man who turned retreat into salvation. The sword of Allah had tasted its first battle for Islam, but the truce-shielding Mecca was fraying, and Khalid's loyalty would soon face its ultimate trial. The fragile peace of Hudaybiyah shattered when the Banu Bakr tribe, allied with the Quraysh, launched a midnight raid against their rivals, the Khuzā', steadfast allies of the Muslims. 20 Khuzā' lay dead, their blood staining the sands. A desperate delegation rode to Medina, pleading with the Prophet, "They broke the treaty. Help us." In Mecca, Abu Sufyan, fearing retaliation, rushed to Medina. His daughter, Habiba, the Prophet's wife, turned away coldly. The Prophet received him in silence, a stillness more terrifying than any threat. Frantic, Abu Sufyan sought intercession from Abu Bakr, Umar and Ali. Umar's reply cut like steel. "By Allah, if I had but an army of ants, I would wage war against you." Ali offered only cryptic counsel: keep peace among men. Abu Sufyan returned to Mecca empty-handed. The Prophet moved with devastating speed. He assembled 10,000 warriors, the largest Muslim force ever seen, and marched under strict secrecy. When a woman attempted to warn Mecca, Ali and Zubair intercepted her, seizing her letter. By January 630, the army stood undetected at Maruz Zaran, just miles from Mecca. Here, Abbas, the Prophet's uncle, embraced Islam. Fearing Quraysh annihilation, he rode out on the Prophet's mule, meeting a scouting Abu Sufyan. The messenger comes with 10,000 men, Abbas warned. Resist, and your head will roll. He brought Abu Sufyan to the Muslim camp where Umar demanded his execution. The Prophet spared him, declaring, whoever enters Abu Sufyan's house, locks his door, or enters the mosque shall be safe. On January 11th, 630, Mecca lay vulnerable. The Prophet divided his forces into 4 columns. Khalid commanded the northeast approach through Kandama. While 3 sectors entered peacefully, Ikrimah and Safwan, hardened enemies, ambushed Khalid's column. In a fierce clash, Khalid slew 12 Quraysh, losing only 2 Muslims. The Prophet, displeased by the bloodshed, summoned Khalid. Did you provoke this? Khalid defended his actions. They drew swords first. The Prophet accepted his account but noted Khalid's lack of restraint. At the Kaaba, the Prophet shattered 360 idols with a staff, proclaiming, "Truth has come, falsehood has vanished." He pardoned the Quraysh. "Go, you are forgiven," but named 10 war criminals for execution, including Ikrimah and Hind. Most, like Ikrimah who later repented, were spared. Khalid's next mission: destroy the goddess al-Uzza at Nakhla. After smashing a decoy idol, the Prophet rebuked him. "You have not destroyed Uzza." Returning, Khalid found her temple guarded by a naked, wailing woman. He cut her down, shattered the idol, and reported, "That was Uzza. Never again shall she be worshipped." But violence followed. Sent to invite the Bani Jazima to Islam, Khalid, mistrusting their surrender, ordered them bound. Ignoring protests, he executed captives. The Prophet, horrified, cried, "O Lord, I am not responsible for Khalid's deed." He sent Ali with reparations, soothing the tribe. When Khalid justified his actions, the Prophet warned, "Leave my companions alone. If you spent a mountain of gold, you would not equal their status." Khalid, the Sword of Aloe, had saved an army at Muta and conquered Mecca, but the shadow of his ruthlessness lingered. The conquest of Mecca unified Arabia under Islam, but a storm gathered in the mountains of Taif. Malik bin Auf, a young general with 12,000 warriors, vowed to crush the Muslims. The hills of Hunain would test Khalid's brilliance once more. Hardly had the dust settled over Mecca when Hawazin and Thaqif tribes mustered 12,000 warriors at Outas near Hunain. Their commander, 30-year-old Malik bin Auf, devised a ruthless strategy. He ordered families and flocks to join his army, declaring, "Every man will fight with his kin behind him." The aged sage Durayd bin al-Simma objected, "Men fight with swords, not women. If we lose, at least our families survive." Malik dismissed him as senile. The Prophet, learning of this threat, marched from Mecca on January 27th, 630 Common Era. His force swelled to 12,000 to 10,000 veterans of Mecca's conquest, and 2,000 hesitant Meccan converts, including Abu Sufyan and Safwan. Khalid led the vanguard with 700 Banu Sulaym horsemen. At dawn on January 31st, Khalid's advance guard entered the narrow Hunain valley. Malik had laid a masterful ambush. As Muslims descended the defile, apostates rose from hidden positions, unleashing a hailstorm of arrows. The valley echoed with war cries and drumbeats. Khalid's mount stumbled. Wounded, he fell as Banu Sulaym panicked and fled. Meccan converts broke ranks, shouting, "The sorcery of Muhammad is exposed." Only 9 companions stood with the Prophet, Ali, Abu Bakr, Umar and Abbas among them. Abbas, his thunderous voice echoing across the hills, rallied the tribes. "O Ansar, O companions, return to the messenger of Allah." As 100 men reformed, the Prophet ordered a countercharge. Ali slew the first apostate, a warrior on a red camel. Thousands soon rejoined the ranks. The Muslims surged forward. Malik, shocked by the reversal, retreated to Outas, leaving Durayd bin al-Simma among 70 dead apostates. Khalid, healed by the Prophet's breath, regrouped Banu Sulaym. Under Zubair's command, they pursued Malik to Outas, where Abu Amir fell after killing 9 foes. The Muslims triumphed. capturing 6,000 women and children and vast herds. The Battle of Hunain was Khalid's first taste of ambush. He vowed, "Never again will I be caught unawares," and he never was. Victory at Hunain shattered the tribes, but Taif's walls loomed. Behind them, Malik bin Auf prepared a last stand. The Prophet would face his most stubborn siege, and Khalid would meet an enemy immune to the sword. The Prophet, refusing Malik bin Auf respite after Hunain, marched toward Taif on February 5th, 630 Common Era. Khalid led the vanguard through treacherous mountain passes, Nakhla Valley, Wadi ul-Mulay and Wadi ul-Khan, arriving east of Taif undetected. But Malik, anticipating their approach, had fortified the city walls and stockpiled provisions. As Muslims camped near the walls, Thaqif archers rained arrows, killing several before the camp relocated to safer ground, now Ibn Abbas Mosque. Abu Bakr directed siege operations while archery duels favoured the defenders. Abdullah, Abu Bakr's son, fell wounded, a wound that would later claim his life. Salman al-Farsi, drawing on his Persian military expertise from the Battle of the Ditch, first instructed the Muslims to construct a catapult for hurling stones into Taif. Yet their inexperience with siege engines made it ineffective. Undeterred, he then devised a testudo, a protective shield of cowhide, under which soldiers advanced toward the wooden gate to set it ablaze. But as they reached the gate, Thaqif defenders poured red-hot iron scraps onto the testudo, igniting the hide and forcing the Muslims to abandon it under a barrage of arrows. The Thaqif poured red-hot iron scraps onto the testudo, igniting the hide. Muslims fled, abandoning the device as arrows felled one warrior. Weeks passed in stalemate. The Prophet convened his council. One commander advised patience. "Corner a fox in its hole, and you'll catch it if you wait." Abu Bakr and Umar urged withdrawal. When hotheads demanded another assault, the Prophet replied, "Attack tomorrow." They did, and were bloodily repulsed. On February 23rd, the siege lifted. 12 Muslims lay dead. At Jirana, the Prophet distributed out as spoils, granting Meccan converts equal shares to cement loyalty. Then came the Hawazin delegation. "Return our women and children, keep the rest." The Prophet appealed to the army, and all captives were released, except a girl Safwan bin Umayyah kept briefly for her beauty. Malik bin Auf, slipping from Taif, embraced Islam. Though richly rewarded, this brilliant tactician never commanded again. By March's end, the Prophet returned to Medina. The coming year, the year of delegations, would see tribes flock to Islam, some sincere, others political opportunists. Khalid's role ended quietly. His last mission, a bloodless conversion of Banu Haritha in Najran, July 631 Common Era, teaching Islam until January 632. The sword of Allah was sheathed for now. In the scorching summer of 630 Common Era, alarming reports reached Medina. Emperor Heraclius had massed Roman legions in Syria, advancing into Jordan. The Prophet, testing the believers' resolve in extreme heat, ordered preparations for war. While true Muslims rallied eagerly, hypocrites whispered dissent, and even faithful men wavered, lured by Medina's shaded orchards. Late October 630 Common Era saw 30,000 Muslims, the largest Islamic army yet assembled, march toward Tabuk. Upon arrival, they discovered the Romans had withdrawn to Damascus. The Prophet then secured treaties with tribes along the Gulf of Aqaba, Ayla, Jaba, Azru and Magna, all agreeing to pay jizya, tribute. One objective remained: Dumat al-Jandal, ruled by the Christian prince Uqaydir bin Abdul Malik. The Prophet tasked Khalid, "Capture Uqaydir. You will likely find him hunting wild bulls." With 400 horsemen, Khalid arrived on a moonlit November night. As he deployed his forces, Uqaydir emerged with friends on horseback, armed for a night hunt. Khalid ambushed them, personally subduing Uqaydir while his men killed the prince's brother, Hassan. The fort gates slammed shut, but Khalid returned to Tabuk with his royal captive. Uqaydir paid a heavy ransom and agreed to jizya. The army returned to Medina in mid-December 630 Common Era. The year of delegations, 9 AH, began. Tribes from across Arabia swore allegiance to Islam, though motives range from sincere faith to political convenience. Small expeditions continued, including Khalid's final mission in July 631 Common Era, inviting Banu Haritha bin Ka'b in Najran to Islam. His orders were clear: call them thrice to Islam. If they refuse, fight. They accepted peacefully. Khalid stayed months teaching Islam before returning to Medina with their delegation in January 632 Common Era. The Prophet's life neared its end. Khalid's sword rested, but Arabia's peace would soon shatter. June 5th, 632 Common Era, 12th Rabiul Awwal, 11th Hijri. The Prophet Muhammad breathed his last in Medina. Even before his passing, apostasy had begun. In Yemen, the soothsayer Aswad al-Ansi, the Black One, proclaimed himself prophet, reciting fabricated verses as divine revelation. He trained a donkey to bow at his command, earning the name Dul Himar, Donkey-wala. With 700 horsemen, he stormed Najran, killed its Muslim governor, then seized Sana'a after defeating and slaying Shah, son of the Persian governor Bazan. He forcibly married Shah's widow Azad, declared himself Rahman of Yemen, and oppressed Bazan's family. The Prophet, alerted to this treason, sent Qais bin Hubayra to organize Aswad's elimination. Qais secretly allied with Feroz al-Dalami, Azad's cousin and a vengeful Muslim. On May 30th, 632 Common Era, 6 Rabiul Awwal, 11 Hijri, under cover of moonless darkness, Feroz scaled Sana'a's palace walls. Azad hid him in her chamber, then lured the sentry away as Feroz entered Aswad's room. As the impostor awoke, Feroz struck his head. When Aswad bellowed like a bull, Azad deceived the guard. He receives a revelation from Allah. Feroz severed Aswad's head, ending his 3-month rebellion. In Medina, Muslims grieved like sheep on a cold, rainy night. Tribes renounced allegiance. Only Mecca, Medina, and Taif's Thaqif remained steadfast. False prophets arose: Tulayha among the Bani Asad, Musaylima in Yamama, and the impostress Saja among the Taghlib. Abu Bakr, elected caliph, faced the crisis with resolve. In his first address he declared, "I am not the best among you. If I err, correct me. Truth is honesty. Falsehood is treachery. Obey me only if I obey Allah and his messenger." He then enforced the Prophet's final order: dispatch Osama bin Zayd's army to avenge his father's death at Mu'tah. Elders protested: send away warriors when Arabs revolt? Medina lies defenceless. Abu Bakr was adamant: even if wild dogs ravage Medina's streets, I will send Usama as the Prophet commanded. When Usama himself pleaded to delay, Abu Bakr walked beside his horse, urging, "Every step in Allah's way earns 700 good deeds." He retained only Umar as advisor. The army departed on June 24th, 632 Common Era, 1st Rabiul Akhir, 11th Hijri. Apostates rejoiced. Abu Bakr seemed a frail old man. They would soon learn their error. As one fleeing chieftain would cry, "Woe to the Arabs from the son of Abu Kuhafa." With Usama's army gone, apostate tribes closed like a noose around Medina. At Juchisa, just 24 miles east, the Ghatfan, Tai, Hawazin, and Banu Asad, sworn to the impostor Tulayha, massed their forces. Their envoys confronted Abu Bakr with a brazen demand: "We will pray but pay no taxes." The Caliph's reply echoed like steel on stone: "By Allah, if you withhold an ounce of what is due, I will fight you. You have one day to decide." They fled before dawn, rejecting his ultimatum. Abu Bakr rallied every able defender: warriors from Banu Hashim, Ali's unwavering resolve, Zubair's courage, Talha's zeal, and split them into 3 contingents. Apostate scouts, seeing Medina's sparse defences, urged immediate attack. When Tulayha's brother Hibal arrived with reinforcements, the rebels advanced confidently toward the city. In late July's sweltering heat, Abu Bakr struck first. His forces scattered the apostate vanguard, driving them back to Juhusa. Undaunted, the caliph pursued them on rickety pack camels, the only mounts left in Medina. Near a barren slope, Hibal sprang his trap. Hidden apostates rolled waterskins downhill, while others beat war drums, panicking the camels into chaotic retreat. Mistaking this stumble for victory, Hibal reclaimed the camp near Medina's gates. Abu Bakr, unbroken, reorganized his men under night's cloak. He commanded the centre himself, flanked by Numan bin Muqarn on the right, Abdullah bin Muqarn on the left, and Suwaid bin Muqarn guarding the rear. At dawn's first light they stormed the apostate camp. Hibal's men, roused from sleep, fled to Juchisa, where Abu Bakr shattered them again, sending Talha bin Ubaidullah to pursue the stragglers. On August 2nd, 632 Common Era, Usama's army returned, 40 days after departing, laden with captives and wealth from their vengeance at Mu'tah. Their spoils refilled Medina's coffers, and Abu Bakr folded these battle-hardened veterans into a new force. Yet grim reports followed. Apostate clans were slaughtering Muslims who held fast to their faith, burning them alive, hurling them from cliffs. Abu Bakr swore an oath that would echo across Arabia. Every murderer will die as his victim died. At Juchisa, the Caliph forged his sword, 11 corps, each with a standard and a mission. Khalid bin Walid would crush Tulayha at Buzakha, then turn to Malik bin Nuwayra at Buta. Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl was to shadow Musaylima at Yamama without engaging. Amr bin al-As would subdue the rebellious Khuzā and Wadiya tribes near Tabuk. Other commanders fanned out to Bahrain, Oman, Yemen, and beyond. To every leader, Abu Bakr delivered identical orders. Approach each tribe and call the Adhan. If they answer with the call to prayer, spare them. If they refuse, unleash the sword. And for those who murdered Muslims, burn the burners, hurl the cliff murderers from heights. Let their judgment mirror their crimes. As Khalid's corps marched north toward Buzakha, Tulayha sat in his tent prophesying victory. The impostor did not know the Caliph's decree carried a final clause: those who burnt Muslims alive will be burnt alive. Khalid's force surged toward Buzakha, where Tulayha, chief of the Banu Asad and self-proclaimed prophet, had gathered apostate tribes. Abu Bakr, seeking to weaken the impostor, sent Adi bin Hatim, the towering Muslim chief of the Tai tribe, with Khalid. His mission: persuade the Tai to abandon Tulayha. If they refused, Khalid would crush them first. At the Tai encampment, Adi addressed his kinsman, warning of Khalid's wrath. The elders bargained, "Give us 3 days to extract our men from Tulayha's army." Khalid agreed. Meanwhile, he turned to the Jadila tribe. Adi persuaded them to submit, swelling Khalid's ranks with 1,000 warriors. When Tai horsemen secretly withdrew their contingent from Tulayha's camp, Khalid's force reached 6,000. A day from Buzakha, Khalid sent 2 scouts, Ukasha bin Mihsan and another, ahead. They clashed with Tulayha's brother Hibal and a companion. Hibal fell to Ukasha's sword, but the surviving scout alerted Tulayha, who rode out with another brother, Salma. In the duel that followed, Tulayha slew Ukasha, a beloved companion whose death would haunt the Muslims. On the plain of Buzakha, the armies faced each other in September 632 Common Era. Tulayha, wrapped in a prophet's cloak, sat in a tent, claiming to receive revelations from Jibril. He appointed Uyayna bin Hisn, chief of the Banu Fazara, to command the centre. Khalid attacked fiercely. When Muslim pressure dented the apostate lines, Uyayna rushed to Tulayha's tent. "Has Jibril come?" Tulayha answered, "No." Twice more Uyayna asked as the battle turned against him. On the 3rd visit, Tulayha finally claimed divine guidance. Jibril says, "You have a handmill like his. This is a day you will not forget." Uyayna exploded. "By Allah, this is a day you shall not forget." He withdrew the Banu Fazara, collapsing Tulayha's front. The apostates scattered. Tulayha, placing his wife on a fast camel, fled to Syria. Khalid pursued Uyayna to Gamra. After a sharp clash, Uyayna was captured in irons and hauled to Medina. Children taunted him. "O enemy of Allah, you disbelieved after belief." Abu Bakr pardoned him, but years later Uyayna, visiting Caliph Uthman, would claim he fasted by night to avoid daytime hunger. At Naqra, Khalid crushed the Banu Sulaym. Their poet-commander Abu Shajra, who had boasted, "My spear shall play havoc with Khalid's regiments," was captured. Pardoned by Abu Bakr, he later begged Umar for alms, only to be whipped and driven from Medina. Khalid returned to Buzakha as repentant tribes surrendered. He enforced Abu Bakr's decree. Murderers died as their victims had, burned alive, thrown from cliffs, or shot with arrows. His justice was mirror and iron. Finally, Khalid marched to Zafar, where Salma, daughter of the slain chieftainess Kirfa, commanded rebel forces from her mother's famed camel. In battle, Khalid spearheaded a charge toward her armoured litter. As his sword felled the camel, Salma died under its weight, surrounded by 100 loyal warriors. The Salma range would bear her name, a tribute to the woman who dared face the sword of Allah. With Tulayha broken and Salma fallen, Khalid turned east. At Butar, a new enemy waited. Malik bin Nuwayra, the poet chief whose beauty-stunned wife would ignite a fire that nearly consumed the sword of Allah. Malik bin Nuwayra, chief of Banu Yabu, with a face fine as the moon, had once welcomed travellers with a lamp burning all night outside his home. But when news of the Prophet's death reached Butar, he opened the tax coffers, declaring, "O Banu Handala, your wealth is now ours." His apostasy drew Sajja bint al-Harith, a kinswoman and self-proclaimed prophetess from the Christian Taghlib tribe. She arrived at Hazan with her army, proposing an alliance. "I am but a woman of Banu Yabu, the land is yours." Malik agreed, joining her raids against rival tribes. Sajja's ambitions soon outpaced her prudence. At Nabaj, her forces plundered local clans until united resistance bloodied her troops. When elders asked, "Where now?" she rhymed, "Onward to Yamama, where the fighting is fiercest." Her army marched toward Musaylima the liar, the most dangerous impostor in Arabia. Musaylima, ruler of Yamama, had already deceived his people. After accompanying a delegation to Medina, he claimed prophethood, twisting the prophet's praise, "He is not the least among you," into proof of his divine role. His false verses mocked the Quran. "Allah blessed my wisdom, strong as the gust between belly and intestines." His collaborator, Nahar al-Rajal, a former companion sent to expose him, betrayed Islam, swearing, "I heard Muhammad call Musaylima prophet." When Sajja arrived, Musaylima isolated her. In a heated tent scented with intoxicating incense, he revealed verses, "Allah created woman a receptacle, and man her mate. Then a little lamb is brought forth." Sajja, enthralled, accepted his marriage proposal. After 3 days, her tribesmen demanded a dowry. Musaylima offered, "I remit 2 prayers, dawn and night." Later, he sent grain from Yamama. Sajja departed for Iraq, abandoning prophethood. Meanwhile, Malik bin Nuwayra, fearing Khalid's approach after Sajja's exit, dissolved his army. "Disperse. We disobeyed our rulers and gained nothing." He retreated to his home, where his wife Layla, renowned for her beauty, especially her legs more lovely than any seen, awaited. The storm Khalid had unleashed in the west was now racing toward Butar. Khalid's corps descended on Butar, finding no army, only a defiant chief and a wife whose beauty would spark the greatest controversy of the Sword of Allah's life. As Khalid advanced toward Butar in November 632 Common Era, the Ansars in his corps rebelled. "This exceeds Abu Bakr's orders," they protested. "We fight only at Buzaka." Khalid retorted, "I command here. Malik bin Nuwayra is an enemy. I will strike him. Let those willing follow." He marched until the Ansars relented, rejoining him hours later. At Butar, Khalid found no army. Malik, fearing the sword of Allah, had disbanded his warriors. "Disperse. We disobeyed our rulers and gained nothing. Make peace." He sent collected taxes to Khalid, but when questioned, his envoys admitted, "We allied with Sajja only for tribal revenge." Suspicious, Khalid sent Dirar bin al-Azwar's detachment to Malik's house. They seized the chief and his wife Layla, whose legendary beauty no man could behold unmoved. Before Khalid, Malik remained defiant. When asked why he apostatized, he called the Prophet your master, not our master. "Do you not regard him as your master?" Khalid demanded. Convinced of Malik's unrepentant disbelief, he ordered execution. Dirar beheaded the chief. That night Khalid married Layla. Abu Qatada, who had opposed Khalid since the Bani Jazima massacre, raced to Medina, accusing him, "He killed a Muslim to take his wife." Abu Bakr ordered him back to his post. Umar stormed in. "Dismiss this tyrant. He kills Muslims and burns men." The Caliph summoned Khalid. In Medina, Umar confronted Khalid at the mosque. "You murderer. You deserve stoning," tearing an arrow from his turban. Before Abu Bakr, Khalid defended his actions. Malik's apostasy was proven by his tax theft, Sajja alliance and warriors' raids. The Caliph ruled, "You acted rightly, but marrying Layla was unwise." He paid blood money to Malik's heirs and warned Khalid, "You cannot equal the status of my early companions." As Khalid left, he taunted Umar. "Come, left-handed one." Umar walked away silently. Years later, Malik's brother Mutamim would lament, "We were like drinking mates of Jadima. When we parted, it was as though Malik and I were never together for even a night." The sword of Allah had conquered, but the shadow of Layla would haunt his legacy. While Khalid faced scrutiny in Medina, Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl ignored Abu Bakr's orders. At Yamama, he charged toward Musailima's 40,000 warriors. The liar grinned. "Let the Muslims come. My revelations promise victory." The defiant words of Thumama bin Uthal hung over Yamama like a curse. "Musailima, recant. Do not contend, for in prophethood you have not been given a share. If Khalid comes to them, you will be abandoned." Abu Bakr, acutely aware of Musailima's threat, had already deployed his forces with precision. At Juchisa, he organised 11 corps, assigning Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl, eager to atone for his violent past against the Prophet, to pin down Musailima's army at Yamama without engaging. The Caliph's strategy was clear. Khalid, his finest general, would crush the liar after neutralising other apostate tribes. But Ikrimah's fiery temperament betrayed him. When news reached his camp of Khalid's victories against Tulayha and Queen Salma, he burned with impatience. "Why let Khalid win all glory?" he declared, ignoring Abu Bakr's orders and Shurabil bin Hassana's approaching reinforcements. In late October 632, he launched a rash assault, only to stagger back days later, defeated and repentant. Abu Bakr's rebuke was scathing. "O son of the mother of Ikrimah, do not let me see your face. Proceed to Oman." Humiliated, Ikrimah withdrew, while Shurabil remained near Yamama under strict orders to await Khalid. Meanwhile, Khalid, fresh from resolving the Malik bin Nuwaira affair, received Abu Bakr's command: destroy Musailima. He rallied his corps at Buta, reinforced by Ansars and emigrants from Medina. But as he marched toward Yamama, he discovered Shurabil had repeated Ikrimah's folly, attacking Musailima and suffering defeat. Khalid's rebuke was swift and severe. Scouts soon reported Musailima's army encamped on the plain of Akraba, north of Wadi Hanifa. Khalid positioned his 13,000 men on high ground south of the valley, while Musailima, confident after routing Ikrimah and Shurabil, advanced with 40,000 warriors, vowing to defend Yamama's fertile heartland. At dawn, Khalid ordered a full assault. Cries of "Allahu Akbar" echoed as his centre and wings charged into the apostate ranks. Initially, Muslim champions cut through enemy lines, but Musailima's men held firm. Then the liar unleashed a ferocious counterattack. The Muslim advance faltered, then collapsed into a panicked retreat. Apostates plundered Khalid's camp, where his wife Layla and the chained captive Mujar watched in terror, as invaders nearly killed Layla, halted only by Mujar's intervention. "I am her protector, go for the men!" That night Khalid rallied his shattered forces. He diagnosed the failure. Mixing tribal contingents had weakened their cohesion. Regrouping the army by clan, he declared, "Now every man will fight for Islam and his tribe's honour." Officers paced before the ranks, reciting Quranic promises of paradise for martyrs. At dawn, the Muslims advanced again, like hungry lions. Zayd bin Khattab, Umar's brother, slew the renegade commander Rajal in single combat, while Khalid duelled champions, reciting verses, "I am the son of many chiefs. My sword is sharp and terrible." Yet Musailima eluded him, fleeing when Khalid feigned negotiation. Then Wahshi, the savage who had killed Hamza at Uhud, spotted Musailima. His javelin pierced the impostor's belly. Abu Dujana beheaded him, crying, "Musailima is dead." Apostates fled to a walled garden, soon known as the Garden of Death. Bara bin Malik scaled its walls, killed the guards, and flung open the gates. Muslims poured in, slaughtering 7,000 in a frenzy. By sunset, 21,000 apostates lay dead across Akraba. Muslim losses were catastrophic: 1,200 martyrs, including 300 Quran memorizers. Zayd and Abu Dujana fell, while Umar's son Abdullah survived, only to be rejected by his father. "Why were you not killed beside Zayd? Let me not see your face again." Mujar, still captive, warned Khalid, "You fought only a fraction of Bani Hanifa." Exhausted, Khalid negotiated surrender terms, but Mujar tricked him, dressing women as warriors to defend an empty fort. When Abu Bakr later ordered all Bani Hanifa killed, Khalid refused, honouring the pact. Days later, Khalid married Mujar's daughter. Abu Bakr's rebuke was swift. "O son of the mother of Khalid, you marry women while blood of 1,200 Muslims is not yet dry," Khalid muttered. This must be the work of that left-handed one, but kept his bride. Layla, the widow of Malik, vanished from history. Yamama, the bloodiest battle in Islam's young history, became a legend. Old men would later boast, "I was at Yamama." As Khalid secured the ruins of Yamama, Abu Bakr's gaze turned to Arabia's fringes, where the last embers of rebellion glowed in Oman, Mahra, and Yemen. The final collapse of the apostasy wars was at hand. Abu Hussein's words would echo through history. There was not born to Adam among his descendants anyone better than Abu Bakr, after the prophets and messengers. Abu Bakr took a stance in the days of apostasy which was like the stance of one of the prophets. As Khalid pacified Central Arabia, the caliph's strategy unfolded with precision. Amr bin al-As, sent earlier to the Syrian frontier, struggled against the apostate tribes of Khuza'a and Wadiya. His limited progress changed when Shurabil bin Hassana, redeployed after Yamama, reinforced him. Together they crushed the northern rebels at Tabuk and Dawmatul Jandal, restoring peace to the region. In Oman, the crowned pretender Dul-Taj had declared himself king after the Prophet's death, establishing his stronghold at Darba. Abu Bakr dispatched Hudayfa bin Mihsan, but facing overwhelming forces, Hudayfa awaited reinforcements. The caliph recalled the disgraced Ikrimah, fresh from his failure at Yamama, ordering him to Oman. By late November 632, their combined armies defeated Dul-Taj at Darba. The false king fell in battle, Hudayfa assumed governorship, and Ikrimah ruthlessly pacified the surrounding tribes. No sooner had Oman submitted than Ikrimah marched to Mara, under Abu Bakr's command to assist Al-Fajr. Finding Al-Fajr delayed, Ikrimah confronted the rebels at Jairut alone in early January 633. When he called them to Islam, the larger faction refused while the smaller embraced the faith and joined him. Ikrimah's victory was decisive. Rebel commanders slain, spoils abundant. After re-establishing Islamic rule, he rested at Abyan. Meanwhile, Ali bin al-Hadrami faced entrenched rebels at Hajr in Bahrain. Repeated assaults failed until a fateful night when his spies reported wild revelry in the enemy camp, every soldier drunk. Allah launched a midnight attack, slaughtering hundreds before the rebels could arm themselves. The survivors fled to the coast for a final stand, but were crushed by month's end. Yemen's rebellion proved more treacherous. After assassinating Muslim leaders in a trap at Sana'a, the apostate Qais bin Abd-Yagos forced Governor Pharaoh to flee to the mountains. For 6 months, Pharaoh gathered loyalists until, in mid-January 633, he marched on Sana'a and defeated Qais. The rebel fled to Abyan, where Ikrimah, now resting after Mahra, accepted his surrender. Abu Bakr pardoned Qais and his allies, some of whom later fought valiantly for Islam. But the fiercest challenge arose in Kinda. When Governor Ziyad bin Lubayd imprisoned tribesmen for stealing a tax camel, the Kinda revolted en masse. After Ziyad's raid on their Riyaz camp captured rebels, the chief Ashaz bin Qais, though still Muslim, freed them, shouting, "We are of your mother's clan." Tribal loyalty had trumped faith. Abu Bakr responded decisively. Muhajir bin Abi Umayyah, fresh from quelling Najran, and Ikrimah converged on Ziyad. Their combined forces defeated Ashaz, who retreated to the fortress of Nujaya. The siege that followed exposed Ashaz's treachery. Offering to surrender if 10 men were spared, he wrote 9 names, then added the 10th, Jadam, only when threatened with a dagger. As Ashaz opened the gates, Muslim troops poured in, slaughtering the garrison while captive women cursed him. "You traitor!" Sent to Medina in chains, the silver-tongued Ashaz not only won Abu Bakr's pardon, but reclaimed his wife, the caliph's sister. Years later, on his deathbed, Abu Bakr would whisper, "I wish I had had Ashaz beheaded." By mid-February 633, Nujaya's fall extinguished the last rebellion. Arabia stood united under Medina's banner. The campaign of the apostasy, fought and won entirely within the 11th Hijri year, marked Abu Bakr's supreme triumph. As the 12th Hijri year dawned on March 18th, 633, not a single flame of apostasy flickered in the peninsula. The door to greater conquest now swung open. With Arabia secured, Abu Bakr's vision expanded beyond the desert. From Yamama, he sent Khalid a command that would shake empires. Proceed to Iraq. Start operations at Ubala. Your objective is Hira. The sword of Allah turned north, toward the Persian Lion. The Quranic verse echoed in Khalid's mind as he prepared his army. Say to the desert Arabs who lagged behind, "You shall be summoned against a people given to vehement war." 48:16. Before him stood the Persian Empire, A colossus spanning 12 centuries, its first golden age forged by Anushirwan the Just, contemporary of Justinian. Now, under the ill-fated young Emperor Yazdjurd, it teetered in decay. Civil wars and regicides had bled its strength. 8 rulers had risen and fallen in 5 years, including 2 daughters of Chosroes Parwez. When Queen Bahram ascended the throne during the Prophet's lifetime, he remarked, "A nation will never prosper that entrusts its affairs to a woman." Iraq, Persia's richest prize, was a land of ancient rivers and Arab tribes. Once ruled by the Lakhmid kings of Hira, vassals of Persia, their dynasty ended when Khosrows crushed their revolt and executed Numan bin Mundir by elephant trampling. Now Persian generals governed from glittering cities: Ctesiphon, the imperial capital; Hira, jewel of the west; Ubala, gateway to eastern seas. The Euphrates and Tigris, ever shifting their courses, wove through marshes and farmlands, their branches embracing Ubala like protective arms. Muthanna bin Haritha, chief of the Bani Bakr, had already tested Persia's fraying edges. Raiding from Khafan, his desert riders struck Ubala's outskirts, vanishing with spoils that dazzled Arabia. "Appoint me commander," he urged Abu Bakr, "and I shall raid while shielding our lands." The Caliph agreed, but now envisioned more than raids. He ordered Khalid to invade Iraq, specifying, "Take only those who remained steadfast after the Prophet's death. Let who wishes return home." The response stunned Khalid. Thousands departed, leaving just 2,000 veterans. "Reinforce me," he wrote to Abu Bakr. The Caliph summoned Kaka bin Amr, a single warrior. When companions protested, "One man for an army in retreat," Abu Bakr replied, "No army fails with men like him." Meanwhile, Muthanna, Majur bin Adi, Hamala, and Sulma rallied 8,000 tribesmen. Khalid himself gathered 10,000 more, until 18,000 stood ready, the largest Muslim force yet assembled. In late March 633, Khalid divided his army into 3 columns, marching a day apart toward Hufair. To Hormuz, Persian governor of Dastmaysan, a 100,000 dirham man whose arrogance birthed the Arab curse, more hateful than Hormuz, he sent a challenge. "Submit to Islam and be safe, or pay jizya under our protection, else I bring a people who desire death as ardently as you desire life." Hormuz read the letter with contempt. He would teach these desert scorpions the weight of imperial wrath. As Khalid's corps converged at Hufair, Hormuz marched to Kazima, chaining his warriors for battle. The chains clinked like funeral bells, for they would bind the Persians not to victory, but to slaughter. Hormuz deployed his army at Kazima facing southwest, men linked by chains, 4 lengths binding 3 to 10 soldiers. This ancient Persian tactic, born of suicidal courage, aimed to create an unbreakable wall against cavalry. Arab auxiliaries recoiled. "You have bound yourselves for the enemy." The Persians retorted, "We see you wish to run." But when scouts reported Khalid veering toward Hufair instead, Hormuz abandoned Kazima, forcing his chain-laden infantry on a grueling 50-mile march. Khalid, learning of Hormuz's movement, halted near Hufair, then doubled back through the desert toward Kazima. His camel-mounted army moved swiftly, while the Persians trudged under scorching sun and heavy armor. Arriving exhausted at Kazima, Hormuz redeployed just as Khalid emerged from the eastern hills. Before battle, Khalid dismounted his men. When they murmured about lacking water, he declared, "By my faith, water will go to whichever army is more steadfast." Rain fell instantly, filling Muslim waterskins. The battle opened with Hormuz dismounting to duel Khalid, a ruse. As they grappled, Persian assassins rushed forward, but Kaka bin Amr, Abu Bakr's lone reinforcement, galloped into the fray, cutting down the plotters. Khalid plunged his dagger into Hormuz's chest, then ordered a full assault. The chained Persians fought fiercely, but Muslim momentum shattered their centre. Qubaz and Anushjan, wing commanders, fled as chains trapped thousands for slaughter. By dusk, Kazima's plain ran red. Spoils included Hormuz's 100,000 dirham jewelled cap, sent to Abu Bakr, who returned it to Khalid, later sold for cash, and a war elephant which bewildered Medina's citizens until the Caliph sent it back. Khalid spared farmers and shepherds who paid jizya, then advanced north. Muthanna's vanguard besieged the Fort of the Lady near modern Zubair. When its ruler surrendered peacefully, Muthanna's brother Mu'anna married her, a union sealing the conquest. As Khalid consolidated his gains, Persian survivors fled up the Tigris. There, at the banks of an unnamed river, General Karin awaited them with fresh troops. He vowed to drown the Muslims in the very waters they lacked at Kazima. Karin bin Kardiana, a 100,000 dirham man commanding Persia's imperial army, deployed his forces with their backs to the river, boats standing ready on the bank. This shrewd positioning denied Khalid any flanking manoeuvre. Muthana's light cavalry, scouting ahead, made first contact and raced back to report the massive concentration at Sini. Khalid, leaving Suwaid bin Muqarrin to administer conquered lands, marched 15,000 veterans toward the riverbank. The two armies faced each other in April 633. Khalid's wings, again led by Asim bin Amr and Adi bin Hatim, braced for assault. Karin stepped forward, challenging Khalid to single combat. But before Khalid could engage, the lesser-known Muslim champion Magal bin al-Ashi spurred his horse and closed with the Persian general. Their duel ended abruptly. Magal's sword struck true, felling Karin. Simultaneously, Asim slew Anushjan and Adi cut down Kubaz. Leaderless, the Persian ranks wavered. Khalid ordered a full attack. The Muslims surged forward, their battle cries echoing across the water. Though outnumbered, their skill and cohesion proved superior. The Persians fought fiercely but gradually buckled under relentless pressure. When their lines finally shattered, they scrambled for the boats Karin had prudently anchored at the riverbank. Thousands drowned or were cut down mid-flight. Only those reaching the boats escaped. Tabari recorded 30,000 Persian dead, a catastrophic loss that left the river choked with bodies and debris. Victorious yet pragmatic, Khalid established a permanent tax administration under Suwaid bin Muqarrin at Hufair. More crucially, he deployed Arab agents across the Euphrates, converts won over by his fair treatment of locals, to infiltrate Hira and Ctesiphon. Their intelligence would soon reveal Persia's next move, two fresh armies converging at Walajah, where the empire planned to crush the Muslims once and for all. As Khalid's spies slipped into the night toward Hira, Andarzaghar, a Persian general raised among Arabs, massed troops at Walajah. He awaited Bahman, the empire's senior commander. Together, they would summon every resource to halt the desert storm. But Khalid was already marching, determined to shatter them before they united. The Persian Empire's communication system snapped into action. Lines of men stood at shouting distance from Walajah to Ctesiphon, relaying battlefield events within hours. When news of the river defeat reached Emperor Ardshir, he mobilized two new armies. The first, led by Andarzaghar, a veteran of Khorasan, beloved by Arabs for his upbringing among them, marched swiftly to Walajah. Crossing the Tigris at Kaskar and the Euphrates near the town, he absorbed remnants of Corin's shattered forces and rallied Arab tribes swelling his ranks. Confident but prudent, he awaited Bahman, Persia's senior commander, and a 100,000 dirham man. Khalid, warned by his agents, saw the peril. Two armies converging would overwhelm his 15,000 veterans. He marched day and night, leaving Suwaid to govern conquered lands. By early May 633, he faced Andarzaghar across a sandy plain flanked by low ridges. The Persian general, noting Khalid's smaller force, felt victory assured. Where is their cavalry, he mused, seeing only infantry. Unbeknownst to him, Khalid had detached Buzr bin Abiram and Sa'id bin Mara with 4,000 horsemen, ordering them to circle south under cover of darkness and conceal themselves behind the western ridge. Battle commenced at dawn. Khalid's main force charged, clashing with Persian spearmen. For an hour the desert echoed with war cries as Khalid duelled Hazarmad, a giant champion, decapitating him, then casually eating lunch atop the corpse. When Andarzaghar counterattacked, Muslim lines buckled. Just as Persian victory seemed certain, Khalid signalled. Muslim cavalry surged over the ridge, striking Andarzaghar's rear like twin thunderbolts. The trap snapped shut. Panic tore through Persian ranks. Men trampled each other. Chains meant for steadfastness became death sentences. Khalid's forces pressed from all sides, compressing the imperial army into a bleeding mass. By sunset, Andarzaghar's host ceased to exist. The general fled into the desert only to die of thirst, his body never found. Khalid surveyed the carnage, then rallied his exhausted men. Do you not see the wealth of Persia? If holy war were not enjoined by Allah, we would still conquer this land to exchange our desert hunger for abundance. The victory was Khalid's masterstroke, a double envelopment conceived without knowledge of Hannibal's Cannae. As his men rested among Persian spoils, Messengers galloped in. Bahman's army had diverted to Ulay, joining Arab survivors of Walaja. Khalid turned his gaze south. The river of blood awaited. At Ulays, Christian Arabs of Bani Bakr, their chief slain at Walaja, vowed vengeance. Bahman sent his deputy Jaban with orders, "Avoid battle until I join you." But Khalid's army was already marching, swift as the sirocco. The stage was set for a battle that would drown empires in crimson. The Christian Arabs of Bani Bakr, survivors of Walaja's slaughter, gathered at Ulays, a strategic junction between the Euphrates and its branch, the Kasif River. Their leader, Abdul Aswad, burned for revenge. 2 sons lay dead at Walaja. Soon, thousands of Arab tribesmen from Hira and Amgishia joined them, swearing to halt Khalid's advance. Meanwhile, Emperor Yazdjurd, gravely ill in Ctesiphon, ordered Bahman to reinforce them. Bahman dispatched his deputy Jaban with the imperial army, cautioning, "Avoid battle until I join you," before rushing to the emperor's bedside. Khalid, learning of the gathering storm, marched from Walaja with 18,000 men. At Ulays, Jaban deployed his combined Persian-Arab force between the Euphrates and the dry bed of the Kasif, its dam closed, leaving only cracked earth. As midday approached, Persian soldiers sat down to eat, ignoring Jaban's warning. "I fear the enemy will not let you eat in peace." Khalid's army appeared like a sandstorm. Bowls clattered as men scrambled to arms. The battle erupted, with Khalid killing Abdul Aswad in single combat. For hours the Muslims hammered the imperial lines, but Persian discipline and Arab desperation held firm. Exhausted, Khalid raised his hands. "O Lord, if you give us victory, I shall see no enemy warrior lives until their river runs with their blood." The Muslims redoubled their assault, shattering the Persian centre. Panic spread. Jaban fled as survivors scattered. Khalid ordered cavalry to capture, not kill, the fugitives. For 2 days and nights, Muslims herded thousands back to the Kasif. One by one they were beheaded in the riverbed. Sand soaked up the blood until Kaka urged, "Let the water run. Thus you keep your pledge." Khalid opened the dam. Water surged, mingling with the blood, turning the Kasif into the river of blood. Tabari recorded 70,000 dead. Later, Khalid would confess, "At Mu'tah I broke 9 swords, but I have never met an enemy like the Persians, and among them none like Ulays." The mill downstream, grinding grain for Muslim troops with red-stained water for 3 days, became legend, though historians dismissed tales of it running on pure blood. Leaving Ulays, Khalid turned toward Amgishia. The city lay silent, abandoned. Its markets brimmed with treasures untouched by war, but not for long. Hira awaited. Amgishia's riches, silks, spices, and silver spilling from its markets, stood unguarded. Khalid's warriors, desert-hardened men who had never seen such opulence, stripped the city bare. Yet no human stirred, only ghosts lingered. The flower of Amgishia's strength had perished at Ulays. Those left, women, children, the aged, had fled into the hinterlands at Khalid's approach. Fear, Khalid understood, had become his deadliest weapon. The spoils dazzled even the caliph. When Abu Bakr received the treasures, equal to all previous battles in Iraq combined, he summoned the Quraysh to Medina's mosque. "O Quraysh, your lion has attacked another lion and overpowered him. Women can no longer bear sons like Khalid." It was the highest praise Khalid bin Al-Waleed would ever receive. In Hira, Governor Azazbeh watched the storm gather. A 50,000 dirham man of Persia, he knew resisting Khalid was folly. Yet honour demanded defiance. He ordered his son to dam the Euphrates, choking Khalid's waterborne advance. Boats ground to a halt in the shallows. Khalid's response was swift. Leaving his stranded army, he led cavalry to Badgala, slaughtered the Persian outpost and reopened the dam. Water flowed. His army sailed again. Azazbeh's son, lax in vigilance, paid with his life. Khalid struck his camp at dawn. Panicked riders brought news of the boy's death to Hira. Then came worse tidings. Emperor Ardshir was dead. Grief-stricken, Azazbeh abandoned Hira, fleeing to Ctesiphon with his garrison. The city was left to the Arabs. Khalid approached not head-on, but like a desert fox. He circled west, bypassing Hira to seize Kawanak, then entered the city unopposed from the rear. The people offered no resistance, but 4 citadels stood defiant. Their Arab Christian commanders manned the walls, Iyas bin Qubaysa in the White Palace, Adi bin Adi at al-Adasiyin, Ibn Akal at Bani Mazin, and Abdul Masih at Ibn Bukhayla. Khalid's generals, Dirar bin al-Azwar, Dirar bin al-Khattab, Dirar bin al-Muqarrin, and Muthanna, besieged each fortress. The ultimatum rang clear: Islam, the jizya, or the sword. The garrisons refused. Catapults hurled clay, arrows darkened the sky. Dirar bin al-Azwar silenced the White Palace's siege engine with a single volley. Within hours, the chieftains relented. They sent Abdul Masih, a 200-year-old sage whose eyebrows fell over his eyes, to negotiate. Khalid, awed, asked the oldest man he'd ever seen, "What is the most wonderful thing you have witnessed?" "A woman travelling from Hira to Damascus with only a loaf of bread," the sage replied, praising Anushirwan's golden age of order. Khalid, misunderstanding, accused him of senility. What followed was a duel of wit. "Where do you come from?" "From the spine of my father." "Where do you come from?" "From the womb of my mother." "Where are you going?" "To my front." "What is to your front?" "The end." Only when Khalid saw Abdul Masih's sharp mind behind the riddles did he offer terms. Accept Islam, pay jizya, or face a people who desire death more than you desire life. "We shall pay the jizya," Abdul Masih conceded. As he departed, Khalid spotted a pouch on his servant's belt. Instant poison. "I feared this meeting might end differently," the sage confessed. "I would prefer death to seeing horrors befall my land." The treaty was signed. 190,000 dirhams yearly, a saddle to replace the army's missing one, and guides for Muslim forces. Then came the curious clause: Kirama, Abdul Masih's daughter, would wed Shuwail, a simple soldier who claimed the Prophet himself had promised him the princess. But Kirama was 80. When presented to Shuwail, his dismay was palpable. "What use is an old woman to you?" she demanded. Shuwail bargained 1,000 dirhams for her freedom. She paid instantly. When Shuwail boasted to his comrades, they laughed. "For Kirama bint Abdul Masih, you could have asked 10 times more." Khalid only smiled. Man intends one thing, but Allah intends another. With Hira secured, Khalid turned his gaze north. The caliph's objective, won through rivers of blood, was complete. But Persia still breathed. Its heart, Ctesiphon, waited. From Hira's gates, Khalid flung his cavalry across the Euphrates. They swept through central Iraq like a sandstorm, up to the banks of the Tigris, killing resistors, accepting jizya from submitters. By late June 633, Rabiul Akhir, 12 Hijri, the land between the rivers bowed to Muslim authority. Ctesiphon lay paralysed, its emperor ailing, its armies shattered. Yet 2 Persian fortresses remained: Anbar, the granary of Iraq, and Ain-ut-Tamr, the spring of dates. Khalid took Anbar first. Marching with 9,000 veterans, he found the ancient city shielded by towering walls and a water-filled moat, its bridges destroyed. Governor Shirzad, a scholar more than a soldier, watched from the battlements as thousands of defenders clustered carelessly atop the ramparts. "I see these people know nothing of war," Khalid observed. His plan was surgical. 1,000 archers advanced to the moat's edge. At his command, arrows flew at nothing but the eyes. 3 volleys left 1,000 eyes destroyed. The Battle of Anbar became forever known as the Battle of the Eyes, Dat al-Uyun. Shirzad offered conditional surrender. Khalid refused. Only unconditional submission would spare the city. When the governor hesitated, Khalid ordered the moat bridged, not with timber, but with flesh and bone. Old camels were slaughtered and thrown into the narrowest point near the main gate. Muslim warriors scrambled across the gruesome causeway. As Persian soldiers sallied out to repel them, Khalid's archers pinned down the defenders. Cornered, Shirzad surrendered, pleading only for safe passage. Khalid agreed, on condition the Persians left all possessions behind. They fled to Ctesiphon, where Bahman scorned Shirzad's excuses. "I was among a people who have no sense." Khalid crossed the Euphrates again, marching south to Ain-ut-Tamr. Here, date palms shaded stout walls manned by Persian troops and Arab auxiliaries of the fierce Namr tribe. The Persian commander, Mahran, was a cunning strategist. The Arab chief, Akka bin Abi Akka, a proud warrior. "Arabs know best how to fight Arabs," Akka declared. Mahran agreed, but secretly planned to let Arabs bleed the Muslims first, then strike fresh. Khalid faced Akka's army alone on the road to Anbar. He deployed his forces, instructing his wings to engage lightly, only to fix the enemy in place. Then, with his bodyguard, he charged Akka. Their duel ended with Akka captured alive. The Arab centre shattered. As they fled to Ain ut-Tamr, they found Marwan gone. He had withdrawn to Ctesiphon at first sight of their defeat. Khalid besieged the abandoned fort. When defenders called for terms, he offered none: surrender unconditionally or perish. They capitulated. Warriors who fought at Anbar or defended the walls were executed, Akka among them. Among the captives were 40 boys training for priesthood in a monastery. One, named Nusayr, would father Musa bin Nusayr, future conqueror of North Africa and architect of Tariq bin Ziyad's invasion of Spain. As Khalid organised spoils, a plea echoed from the northern desert. Dawmat al-Jandal was under siege. Without hesitation, Khalid turned his army westward. The date groves of Ain ut-Tamr faded behind him. The sands of Arabia beckoned. Dawmat al-Jandal, where Khalid had once captured the rebellious Prince Uqaydar, now held Ayad bin Ghanim's Muslims in a deadlock. Christian Arabs of the Kalb tribe swarmed the southern fortifications, while Ayad's force clung to the southern approaches. Roads to the north lay open, yet neither side dared break contact. Both sides were under siege, chroniclers noted wryly. Weeks bled into stalemate, arrows flying, sallies repulsed, until a Muslim officer broke the impasse. In certain circumstances, wisdom is better than a large army. Send to Khalid for help. Ayad's plea reached Khalid at Ain ut-Tamr. Without hesitation, Khalid left a garrison, dispatched Qaqa to command Hira, and marched north with 6,000 men. Ahead raced his reply, a verse promising salvation. Wait a while. There will come to you mounts carrying lions in shining armour, battalions followed by battalions. Defenders of Dawmat al-Jandal saw the dust of Khalid's approach days before his arrival. Panic spread. Christian Arab tribes, Ghassan and Kalb, rushed reinforcements, camping beneath the fort walls. Ayad, now encircled, prayed for Khalid's swift arrival. The Christian forces united under two leaders, Judi bin Rabia and Uqaydar. The latter, who knew Khalid's wrath firsthand, urged peace. No man is luckier than he. No man is his equal in war. Take my advice and make peace. The tribe scorned him. That night Uqaydar fled toward Jordan, only to be intercepted by Khalid's advance guard under Asim bin Amr. Again, Uqaydar stood before Khalid. Again, he pleaded. But betrayal carried a price. Khalid ordered his execution. Uqaydar bin Abdul Malik, Prince of Kinda, master of Dawmat al-Jandal, fell to the sword. Khalid absorbed Ayad's weary men into his army. He deployed them to seal the Arabian route south, positioned forces east, north and west to block Iraq and Jordan, and held a strong reserve. Judi, impatient for battle, ordered twin sallies, one against Ayad, repulsed with heavy losses, another, led by his own clan, the Wadiyah, against Khalid's camp. Khalid lured Judi forward, then struck with utmost violence and speed. The Wadiyah collapsed like a house of cards. Judi was captured. Hundreds fled toward the fort. As Muslim pursuers mingled with fugitives, defenders slammed the gates, trapping their comrades outside. Khalid paraded Judi and his clansmen before the walls, then beheaded them. A grim spectacle meant to break resistance, but it only hardened resolve. The siege tightened. Days later, Khalid stormed the fort. Most defenders perished. Women, children and youths were spared as captives. Among them, Khalid claimed Judi's beautiful daughter as his slave, a warrior's tribute. By late August 633, mid-Jamadi ul-Akhir, 12 Hijri, Dawmat al-Jandal was subdued. Khalid spent days settling the region's affairs. Then, with Ayad now his subordinate, he turned back toward Hira. Persia's shadow loomed, but in Iraq storms were gathering. Hira greeted Khalid in September 633, Rajab 12 Hijri, but calm was an illusion. While Khalid crushed rebellions in Arabia, Persia stirred. Emperor Bahman spared annihilation at Ulay, rallied survivors and fresh recruits into a new army. His envoys raced to Christian Arab tribes thirsting for revenge. Join us, and we shall throw these desert wolves back into the sands. Clans answered, Huzayl bin Imran at Muzayya, Rabia bin Bujayr at Sani and Zumail. Bahman split his forces. Ruzbe marched to Husayd, Zarmaha to Hanafis. Their orders, wait for Arab allies, then converge for a death blow against Hira. Qaqa, Khalid's deputy, countered swiftly. He pulled Muslim detachments back to Hira and sent regiments to shadow the Persian camps. When Khalid arrived, he saw the danger. If imperial forces united, they would outnumber the Muslims threefold. His strategy was precision itself: destroy each army separately before they combined. Khalid split Hira's garrison. Leaving Ayad to guard the city, he marched to Ain ut-Tamr with 3 corps. Kaka struck first at Husayd, October 633. In a savage clash, he slew Ruzbeh. Zarmaha, who arrived too late, fell to a Muslim champion's blade. Shattered Persians fled to Kanafis. Abu Layla's corps pursued them to Kanafis, but Persian commander Mahbuzan had learned from Husayd's ruin. He withdrew to Muzayya, joining Huzayl's Arab force. Khalid now faced a choice: strike Ctesiphon. He rejected it, not just fearing the Caliph's displeasure, but knowing the army at Muzayya could sever his rear. Muzayya first, he declared. What followed was a masterpiece of military art. Khalid ordered his 3 corps, scattered across 100 miles, to converge on Muzayya in total darkness, on a single night. No army had ever attempted such a maneuver. At midnight, 3 Muslim waves surged into the sleeping imperial camp. Panic erupted. Romans and Persians, slashing blindly at shadows, fled into each other. By dawn, Muzayya was a graveyard. Huzayl escaped, but 2 Muslims living among Christian kin died in the chaos. When Umar raged at their deaths, Abu Bakr silenced him. This happens to those who live among infidels. Khalid repeated the tactic at Sani, November 633. Rabi'a bin Bujayr's Arabs perished under converging Muslim swords. Rabi'a's daughter, captured, not killed, would later marry Ali in Medina. 2 nights later, Zumail fell. When Khalid turned to Ruzab, where Hilal, son of Akar, gathered clans, they scattered like dust. With Iraq subdued, Khalid raided Firaz, Persia's last western garrison. Roman and Persian forces, bitter enemies, united against him. For 6 weeks, armies glared across the Euphrates until Khalid lured them across. The battle was brief, decisive. On January 21st, 634, the frontier fell. But Khalid's greatest adventure began quietly. As his army marched back to Hira, he slipped away with a few companions. For 10 days they crossed a trackless waste, a region no guides knew. Reaching Makkah, they performed Hajj in secret, shaving their heads. When Khalid rejoined his rearguard at Hira, soldiers marvelled, but none guessed the truth. Restlessness soon drove Khalid north again. With Muthanna, he raided Baghdad's markets, returning laden with spoils. Abu Bakr's warning arrived: do not do it again. With it came new orders. Khalid was to march to Syria. The Iraq campaign, 14 months, 8 battles and a desert crossed, was over. Khalid's relief bloomed as he read Abu Bakr's full letter, appointing him commander over all Muslim forces in Syria, with authority even over Abu Ubaidah. The sword of Allah would return to Iraq after victory, but for now Syria called. He divided his army meticulously, leaving half with Muthanna in Iraq. When Muthanna insisted on sharing the revered companions of the Prophet, Khalid agreed, parting with cherished leaders like Dirar and Kaka. For Syria, he kept 9,000 hardened warriors. The route posed a stark choice. The safe southern path through Domatul Jandal meant slow progress. The northern Euphrates Trail risked Roman garrisons and delays. Both were rejected. Speed was vital. Muslim forces in Syria faced a gathering storm at Ajnadain, where 90,000 Romans massed. At a war council, Raf bin Umayrah offered a third path, a dagger strike through Samawa's desert. From Kurakir to Suwa in Syria, 5 days without water, even a lone traveller risks death. Khalid silenced doubters. We shall take this route. Allah's help comes according to your deserts. In early June 634 the march began. Women and children were sent to Medina as the column snaked west, Ain ut-Tamr, Sandauda, Muzayya, reaching Kurakir Oasis. Here Muthanna bid farewell. Waterskins swelled. Camels drank deeply. Then came the crucible. Days 1 to 3 under a hammering sun, men rationing sips. At day's end on the 3rd the last drop vanished. 2 waterless days stretched ahead. On the 4th day, tongues swelled, throats burned, prayers whispered, "Sufficient for us is aloe." By the 5th day, Rafe's eyes failed, blinded by glare and ophthalmia. Guiding from memory, he rasped, "Look for 2 hillocks like a woman's breasts, a thorn tree shaped like a sitting man." Scouts found only a stump. "Dig under its roots," Rafe urged. Shovels bit earth, and water gushed like a river. Stragglers revived, camels drank. Rafe then confessed, "I last saw this spring 30 years ago, as a boy with my father. Beyond Susa lay Syria, a land of clouds and hills and winds, where Heraclius ruled from Antioch. His legions, a mosaic of Romans, Slavs and Greeks, garrisoned Damascus and Aleppo. Christian Arab allies under Ghassan king Jabla bin Alayham, so tall his feet touched the ground on horseback, bolstered his might. Earlier Muslim forays had faltered. Khalid bin Sa'id's rash invasion ended in panicked flight. In response, Abu Bakr launched 4 corps: Amr bin al-As to Palestine, Yazid bin Abi Sufyan to Damascus, Shurahbil bin Hassana to Jordan, and Abu Ubaidah to Emesa. The Caliph's parting words echoed, "Be just. When you meet the enemy, turn not your back. Slaughter not beasts except for eating." By May 634, Roman masses gathered at Ajnadain, prompting Abu Ubaidah's desperate plea, "Send Khalid." Now, at Sua's edge, Khalid's army stood on Syria's threshold, dust-streaked, sun-scorched, but unbroken. The Ghassanid town of Marj-Rahit awaited. The desert had been conquered. The Romans would be next. Khalid's gaze swept over Syria's verdant plains, the Ghuta's orchards and fields stretching before him, as his army descended from the Pass of the Eagle. At his back fluttered the black standard of the Prophet, the Eagle. On his body he wore the chainmail of the fallen false prophet Musaylimah. At his belt hung Musaylimah's sword. Beneath his red turban lay a red cap traced with faint black lines, a relic whose story only he knew. With him marched 9,000 veterans of Iraq's sands, including his son Abdurrahman, the Caliph's son by the same name, the guide Raf bin Umayra, the indomitable Kaka bin Amr, and Dirar bin al-Azwa, a youth whose naked blade would soon haunt Roman dreams. First blood was drawn at Susa, where Khalid seized flocks grazing in its oasis, replenishing his army's stores. At Arak, a fortified town, an old scholar peered from the battlements. "Is the commander tall and broad-shouldered?" he asked. "Does he bear a black standard?" When scouts confirmed Khalid's pockmarked face in the eagle's shadow, the scholar warned, "Beware fighting this army." The garrison surrendered without a blow. Columns dispatched to Sukna and Kadma met equal submission. Their gates opened in awe of Khalid's name. Tadmor, Palmyra, followed. Its garrison locked the gates but soon yielded, pledging jizya and promising shelter to Muslim travellers. The Arab chief gifted Khalid a prized horse. Only Qaryatain resisted, briefly. Its defiance ended in plunder. Then came Huarin, where Khalid's men gathered cattle only to be ambushed by local Arabs, reinforced by Ghassanid warriors from Busra. The attackers were crushed, their wealth seized. As Khalid crested the pass near Damascus, Sanivatul Uqab, the Pass of the Eagle, he paused. Below lay the Ghouta, Damascus's fertile belt of orchards and villages. For a moment the Prophet's words echoed, "O joy to Syria," for the angels of the Ever-Merciful spread their wings over it. Then the moment passed. At Marj-Rahit, Ghassanid tribes celebrated a festival, unaware of the storm descending. Khalid shattered their revelry, scattering defenders and taking captives. A mounted column raided Damascus's outskirts, seizing spoils before rejoining the main force. Khalid bypassed the city entirely. Busra, capital of the Ghassan kingdom, was his true prey. Meanwhile, Abu Ubaidah faced Busra's walls. He had sent Shurabil with 4,000 men to besiege its 12,000-strong garrison. For 2 days, the Romans watched. On the third, they attacked. As Muslim ranks faltered, Khalid's cavalry thundered onto the field, a mirage turned mortal. The Romans fled into the fort. "Why attack such a stronghold with so few?" Khalid demanded. Shurabil replied, "By Abu Ubaidah's order." Khalid's retort was crisp. "Abu Ubaidah is a man of pure character, but he knows not war's stratagems." The next morning the garrison sallied again. Khalid deployed his centre, with Dirar commanding the left wing, stripped to the waist, earning his epithet the Naked Champion. Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr duelled the Roman commander, scattering his guard. As combat raged, a rider approached. Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah, the Prophet's trusted one of the nation, his front teeth lost pulling chain links from Muhammad's cheek at Uhud. He dismounted. Khalid bade him stay. "I bear no resentment," Abu Ubaidah declared. "You command by the Caliph's will, and your skill in war is unmatched." Khalid's reply held humility. "Were it not for duty, I would never lead one you deem higher in Islam." Busra surrendered days later, its gates opened for jizya. 130 Muslims had fallen. As Khalid wrote to Abu Bakr, a courier arrived. Roman legions, 90,000 strong, concentrated at Ajnadain. The storm Khalid had raced to avert was breaking. He summoned all Muslim corps, converge at Ajnadain. The road to Damascus could wait. The eagles of Rome would meet the lions of the desert first. The Muslim army flowed toward Ajnadain like a desert mirage. Warriors in mismatched armour perched on camels, women and children trailing with flocks that served as living supply lines. No uniforms distinguished them, no wagons burdened their march. Yet this seeming disorder concealed lethal precision. Soldiers grouped in tens, hundreds and thousands answered only to Allah and Khalid's iron will. By July 24th, 634, they faced the Roman behemoth. 32,000 Muslims against 90,000 imperial soldiers camped along the Jerusalem road. Wardan, the Roman commander, rallied his legions. "If defeated, you will never again stand against Arabs." Khalid rode before his men, his voice cutting the tension. "If Allah grants victory, Rome shall never rise against you again." Dirar opened the dance of death. Scouting the Roman camp, he lured 30 pursuers into no man's land. Stripping to the waist, he became the naked champion, a whirlwind of steel that left 19 Romans dead. Their comrades fled, spreading terror through the ranks. Meanwhile, a Roman spy infiltrated the Muslim camp, returning pale. "By night they are monks, by day warriors. They would cut off a ruler's son's hand for theft." Kubukla, the deputy commander, shuddered. Better buried than face such men. When a black-hatted bishop offered Khalid gold, "Leave, and each soldier gets a dinar," the reply was razor-edged. "Islam, jizya, or the sword. We'll take your gold by conquest." The first day dawned with Roman arrows darkening the sky. Khalid held his men back until noon, enduring losses as slingers found their marks. Impatient, Dirar surged forward, dueling champions and slaying 2 governors. Khalid then unleashed the storm, a grinding sword clash that lasted hours, ending at dusk with exhausted armies withdrawing. That night Wardan plotted treachery. He would lure Khalid to parley, then ambush him with 10 hidden soldiers. He sent emissary David with honeyed words of peace. But under Khalid's gaze, David cracked, confessing the trap. Khalid dispatched Dirar and 9 men. They slit Roman throats in darkness, donned their armour, and waited. At dawn, Wardan met Khalid between the armies. When he signalled his Romans, Dirar emerged, half naked, sword gleaming. Wardan begged, "Kill me yourself. Don't let that devil touch me." Khalid nodded. Dirar's blade swept. As Wardan's head fell, Khalid's roar launched the Muslim charge. Leaderless legions buckled. Kubukla, hiding his face from the carnage, fell to a Muslim sword. By afternoon, the field was a Roman graveyard. Khalid's cavalry pursued fugitives to Jerusalem, Gaza and Jaffa, turning retreat into slaughter. Khalid wrote to Abu Bakr, 50,000 Romans dead, 450 Muslims martyred. Medina erupted in celebration. Abu Sufyan and Hind joined the Syrian march. Heraclius fled to Antioch, ordering remnants to regroup at Yakusa. Khalid swept north, crushing Romans at Yakusa in mid-August. Damascus, the paradise of Syria, now lay undefended. The road to Jerusalem beckoned, but Khalid's eyes fixed on the Ghuta's orchards. The eagles of Rome had fallen. The crescent rose over Syria. Damascus awaited behind walls 11 metres high. Governor Thomas, Heraclius's son-in-law, vowed no king would breach its gates. Beside him stood Azaziah, the champion who had never lost a duel. Khalid's army, still dusted with Ajnadin's ashes, encircled the city. The siege of paradise began. Khalid's army encircled Damascus, the glittering metropolis Prophet Muhammad called one of the most blessed cities of Al-Sham. Behind its towering 11-metre walls, Governor Thomas, Emperor Heraclius' scholarly son-in-law, marshalled 17,000 Roman troops alongside generals Azaziah, a duelist undefeated in single combat, and the shadowy deputy Harbis. As Khalid established his headquarters in the red-walled Deir Khalid monastery near the East Gate, he revolutionized Muslim warfare, creating history's first military staff for intelligence and forging a 4,000-strong mobile guard, elite cavalry that would become his spearhead in battles to come. Thomas struck first. At Marjus Suffer's Yellow Meadow, 12 miles from Damascus, Roman generals Kulus and Azazir deployed 12,000 men to block Khalid's advance. On August 19, 634, Khalid initiated a macabre tournament of duels. Durar fought half-naked, his sword carving through Roman champions while troops roared approval. Khalid himself entered the fray, seizing Kulus by his collar and hurling him to the ground like a sack of grain. When the boastful Azazir taunted, "I am named after the angel of death," Khalid retorted, "then hellfire seeks you ardently." After crippling Azazir's horse with a single sword stroke, Khalid dragged both generals back in chains. The siege of Damascus commenced at dawn on August 20th. Khalid divided his forces at the 6 city gates: Shurabil at Thomas Gate, Abu Ubaidah at Jabir Gate, Amr bin al-As at Faradis Gate, Yazid at Kaysan and Small Gates, while Khalid commanded the East Gate with Durar's 2,000 horsemen patrolling the gaps between fortifications nightly. When Khalid publicly beheaded Kulus and Azazir before the East Gate's battlements, Roman morale shuddered. For 3 weeks, probing sallies and arrow volleys echoed across the walls until Heraclius unleashed a 12,000-strong relief column from Antioch. Khalid dispatched Durar to intercept them near Beit Lihya. Outnumbered and surrounded, Durar fell captive after an arrow pierced his arm. His sister Khawla, disguised in black armour with only her eyes visible, fought like a demon beside Khalid's rescue force. "I am Khawla," she revealed mid-battle, her sword slick with Roman blood. "My brother is captured and my heart burns." Khalid's night march with the mobile guard shattered the Romans, and Durar was freed in a daring ambush on the Emesa road. Desperation now gripped Damascus. In September, Thomas led a furious sally from his namesake gate. A Muslim widow, her husband slain by Roman arrows, drew her bow and shot the bishop brandishing a cross on the ramparts. Her second arrow struck Thomas's right eye, yet the defiant governor swore vengeance. "I shall take 1,000 eyes. Arabia shall house only beasts when I'm done." His midnight assault on 4 gates failed catastrophically when Khalid himself roared his battle cry at the East Gate, "I am the noble warrior, Khalid bin Al-Waleed," sending Romans scrambling behind their walls. The city's fate was sealed by a love-struck Greek named Jonah. Lowering himself by rope near the East Gate on September 18th, he betrayed Damascus' drunken festival guards to Khalid in exchange for help reclaiming his bride. That moonlit night, Khalid, Kaka, and Mazur scaled the walls with rope ladders, slaughtered the gate sentries, and flung open the East Gate to the core of Iraq. As Roman blood stained the streets, Thomas sent envoys to Abu Ubaidah at the Jabir Gate, offering surrender. Unaware of Khalid's assault, the gentle, trusted one of the nation accepted terms: safety for citizens, freedom of worship, and the right to depart with possessions for those paying jizya. At the Church of Mary, Khalid and Abu Ubaidah confronted each other amid the chaos. Khalid's blade dripped crimson as he spat. "I took this city by force." Abu Ubaidah stood firm. "I gave peace in Allah's name. Shall we break the Prophet's trust?" Khalid yielded but banished Thomas and Harbis. 3 days later he pursued their convoy with the mobile guard. At Marjud Dibaj, the meadow of Brocade near Antioch, Khalid annihilated the Romans in a 4-pronged ambush. Thomas and Harbis fell to his sword, while Jonah's bride stabbed herself rather than submit. When Heraclius' envoy begged for his daughter's return, Khalid released her without ransom, declaring, "Honour compels me." On October 1st, 634, Khalid wrote to Abu Bakr, recounting Damascus' conquest and Abu Ubaidah's deception by the Romans. He did not know the caliph had died weeks earlier, or that Umar's first command now echoed through Syria. "I appoint you commander of the army of Khalid bin Al-Waleed." In Medina, Abu Bakr's final act as caliph was to inscribe Umar's succession on parchment. On August 22nd, 634, 22 Jamadi ul-Akhir, 13 Hijri, as Khalid's letter celebrating Damascus' victory journeyed westward, the companion of the cave breathed his last. Umar's first decree as caliph struck like lightning. Khalid bin Al-Waleed was dismissed as supreme commander of the Syrian armies. The letter to Abu Ubaidah bore stern instructions. "Take charge. Send not Muslims to destruction for plunder. Beware worldly temptations." When Umar announced Khalid's removal in the Prophet's mosque, stunned silence gripped the congregation. until a youth from Khalid's clan shouted, "You sheathe the sword Allah made victorious." Umar retorted, "The boy angers for his uncle's son," but later justified his decision. "Khalid squanders wealth on poets and warriors, let it aid the poor instead." The messenger, knowing his tidings could shatter morale at besieged Damascus, concealed Umar's letter until reaching Abu Ubaida's tent. Reading it privately, Abu Ubaidah resolved to withhold the news until after the siege, fearing disarray. Even during the climactic confrontation at Damascus Church of Mary, where Khalid argued for violent conquest while Abu Ubaidah upheld his peaceful pact, the secret remained guarded. Only after Khalid's triumphant return from the Meadow of Brigade raid did Abu Ubaidah reveal the truth. Handing Umar's month-old letter to Khalid, he explained, "I concealed this to preserve your authority while enemies surrounded us." Khalid's eyes traced the devastating words, "I appoint you commander of the army of Khalid bin Al-Waleed." For a moment silence hung thick as desert heat. Then he whispered, "Had Abu Bakr lived, I would not have been removed." That night the conqueror of Damascus wept alone for his lost caliph. At dawn he rallied his dignity before the assembled army. "If Abu Bakr is dead and Umar is caliph, we hear and obey." He accepted demotion to corps commander without protest, serving under Abu Ubaidah with undimmed loyalty. Weeks later, catastrophe tested this resolve. At Abul Quds, modern Abla, young Abdullah bin Jafar, the Prophet's nephew, newly arrived from Medina, volunteered to raid a Roman fair with 500 horsemen. Ignoring Abu Dar al-Ghifari's warnings, he charged a 5,000-strong Roman garrison. Trapped and facing annihilation, a lone survivor galloped to Damascus. Abu Ubaidah, recalling Umar's warning against pointless sacrifice, turned to Khalid. "O father of Suleiman, save your brothers." Khalid responded, "I obey you always, you who the Prophet named Trusted One." With the mobile guard, he shattered the Romans at Abul Quds, rescuing Abdullah and seizing rich spoils. Umar, restructuring the command, divided Syria into sectors: Amr bin al-As in Palestine, Yazid in Damascus, Shurahbil in Jordan, Abu Ubaidah in Emesa. Khalid retained only the core of Iraq and the mobile guard, a military genius now politically diminished. The pace of conquest slowed as Abu Ubaidah, relying on Khalid's counsel, yet bound by Umar's cautious directives, prepared for the storm gathering in the north. Beyond the horizon, Emperor Heraclius marshalled legions from Armenia to Gaul. His strategy was clear: crush the Muslims between 5 armies and reclaim Syria. As winter winds howled across the Yarmouk plains, Khalid sharpened his sword, no longer commander, yet still the soul of the coming storm. Heraclius, the embattled emperor, refused to yield. From Antioch he orchestrated his masterstroke, a fresh army of 80,000 under Sakala, son of Mihrak, concentrated at Basin west of the Jordan River. Their mission was to sever Muslim supply lines and isolate Damascus. At Fal, Pella, a Roman garrison guarded the eastern Jordan approach, until Abul Awaz Muslim cavalry detachment forced its retreat across the river. Sakala then transformed the landscape. Damming the Jordan south of Baisan, he flooded the lowlands, creating a treacherous marsh that stalled Abu Ubaidah's advance. In Damascus, Umar's rigid command structure dictated the response. Shurahbil, as governor of Jordan's sector, assumed army command per caliphal decree. Leaving Yazid's corps to hold Damascus, Shurahbil marched south in January 635 with Abu Ubaidah, Khalid, and Amr bin al-As. At Fal, they found the marshes impassable. For a week, Muslim scouts probed in vain for dry passages while Sakala finalized his trap. On the night of January 23rd, 635, 27 Dulqad, 13 Hijri, Sakala's guides led the Roman army through hidden marsh paths, aiming to ambush the Muslim camp. But Shurahbil's vigilance thwarted them. His scouts sounded the alarm, and Muslims formed battle lines in darkness. All night and through the next day, the Romans hurled assaults against the Muslim ranks. By dusk, Sakala lay dead, his forces exhausted. As they retreated toward Baisan, Shurahbil unleashed his counterstroke. Khalid's mobile guard and Diraz's cavalry drove the Romans into the very marshes they had weaponized. Thousands drowned in mud-choked waters, or fell beneath Muslim swords. 10,000 corpses littered what would be remembered as the Battle of Mud. In the aftermath, Shurahbil and Amr crossed the river, besieging Baisan. When a Roman sally failed, the city surrendered, paying jizya. Tabariya followed, its gates opening without resistance. By February's end, Jordan lay subdued. Amr bin al-As, as governor of Palestine, now turned his gaze south. Umar's dispatches arrived. Capture Nablus, Gaza, and the coast. The Muslim advance resumed, but Heraclius was already weaving a deadlier net in the north. While Amr and Shurabil carved through Palestine, Abu Ubaidah and Khalid rode north toward Emesa. Behind them, the mud of Fal had dried. Ahead, the walls of Syria's greatest fortress awaited. Heraclius watched their every move, whispering to his generals, "Their milk is camel's milk, their flesh is camel's flesh. They cannot endure the cold. Strike them in winter." In early March 635, Muharram 14 Hijri, Abu Ubaidah and Khalid marched north from Fal toward Marjah Rum, the meadow of Rome, bypassing Damascus where Yazid's garrison stood vigilant. Heraclius, seizing the moment, launched a pincer movement. General Theodorus advanced from Antioch via Beirut to retake Damascus, while Shams led reinforcements from Emesa's garrison down the direct road. At Marjah Rum, Khalid faced Theodorus while Abu Ubaidah confronted Shams. Under cover of darkness, Theodorus executed a daring maneuver. Leaving Shams to hold the Muslims, he swung his corps behind Khalid's flank and raced toward Damascus. At dawn, Yazid's outnumbered garrison deployed outside the city walls, battling desperately until Khalid's cavalry thundered into Theodorus's rear. The Roman force shattered. Khalid slew Theodorus in single combat as survivors fled. Simultaneously, Abu Ubaidah overwhelmed Shams' troops, scattering them toward Emesa. Victorious, the Muslims divided their forces. Khalid marched directly to besiege Emesa, while Abu Ubaidah turned to Baalbek. Its garrison surrendered peacefully, accepting Muslim terms without resistance. At Emesa, Khalid encircled the circular fortress with its 4 gates and moat. Within days, a truce was struck. Emesa would pay 10,000 dinars and 100 brocade robes for 1 year of peace, provided no Roman reinforcements arrived. The gates swung open, and Muslims mingled freely in the markets, paying fairly for goods, astonishing the populace. Chinasarine's governor, witnessing this, secured an identical truce. Yet both cities secretly hoped for Heraclius's legions to break the agreements. Throughout summer, Muslim columns raided northern Syria, freeing captives who swore loyalty. By autumn, Umar's impatient letter spurred Abu Ubaidah to campaign beyond the truce zones. In November 635, Ramadan 14 Hijri, Hama welcomed his army, followed by Shiza, Afamiya and Ma'ara hymns, all surrendering peacefully, their citizens greeting Muslims with music. The truce shattered when Roman reinforcements reached Emesa and Chinasarine. Harbis, Emesa's military governor, rallied 8,000 troops behind the moat. As winter's chill deepened, he taunted, "Let cold be your ally." For 2 months, archery duels echoed across the walls until March 636, Safar 15 Hijri, when Harbis led 5,000 men through the Rastan Gate in a surprise dawn attack. Khalid repelled them after a day-long struggle, but Abu Ubaidah lamented the Muslims' uncharacteristic wavering. Khalid advised, "Tomorrow, withdraw visibly from the fort." At daybreak, the army struck camp, families, flocks, and baggage abandoned in apparent panic. Harbis, ignoring a priest's warning, "Arabs never leave their camels," pursued with 5,000 men. When Muslims turned at Khalid's command, flanking cavalry sealed the Roman retreat. Trapped, Harbis fought like a roaring lion until Khalid grappled him, crushing his ribs in a death embrace. As the Romans perished, Muad bin Jabal barred Emesa's gates to survivors. Only 100 escaped. The city surrendered. Abu Ubaidah accepted terms, jizya of 1 dinar per man, no plunder. Weeks later, near Shiza, Khalid captured a Roman supply convoy bound for Chinasarine. Interrogating prisoners, he froze. Heraclius had summoned 150,000 soldiers from Armenia to Gaul. 5 armies gathered at Antioch, each 30,000 strong, led by Armenian King Mahan, Russian Prince Kanatir, Gregory, Derjan, and Ghassanid King Jabla. Their orders: swallow the Muslim forces whole. The horizon darkened with imperial banners. As Khalid read the prisoner's testimony, the truce of Emesa felt like a lifetime past. North, south, and west, the earth itself seemed to march against them. Abu Ubaidah gathered his generals. One word hung in the air: Yarmouk. Heraclius' design unfurled like a death shroud over Syria. 5 imperial armies, 150,000 men gathered from Armenia to Gaul, converged on Antioch under Russian Prince Kanatir, generals Gregory and Darion, Armenian King Mahan, and Ghassanid King Jabla. Their orders were surgical. Kanatir would cut off Damascus from the coast. Jabla's Christian Arabs would pin the Muslims at Emesa. Darion and Gregory would strike their flanks while Mahan's reserve crushed them. Simultaneously, Constantine, Heraclius' son, reinforced Caesarea's garrison to 40,000, binding Yazid's core there. Muslim spies woven into Roman ranks delivered every detail to Khalid. At a war council, he declared retreat the only salvation. Abandon all territory. Concentrate at Jabaya, near the desert our lifeline. Abu Ubaidah issued unprecedented orders. Commanders returned every dinar of jizya to Syrian cities. At Emesa, citizens protested, "Your justice is dearer than Roman cruelty." But Abu Ubaidah insisted, "We cannot protect you now." Jews swore to resist Heraclius' officers. By mid-July 636, the Muslims regrouped at Jabiyah, corps of Abu Ubaidah, Amr, Shurabil and Yazid, who broke siege at Caesarea, while Khalid's rear guard clashed with Jabla's vanguard. At the council, officers split. Some urged desert withdrawal, others vowed to stand firm. Khalid broke the deadlock. "Move to Yarmouk. Place Azra's hills at our backs. The plain favours cavalry, and reinforcements may reach us." As they marched south, Khalid's mobile guard bloodied Jabla's advance, buying time to deploy on Yarmouk's plains. The battlefield was a chessboard of ravines. To the south, the Yarmouk River's canyon plunged 1,000 feet. To the west, the Wadi al-Rakad's cliffs formed a natural prison. Between them stretched an 11-mile plain, dominated only by the hill of Jamua, a strategic perch Khalid secured. Mahan arrayed the imperial army north of Wadi al-Rakad. Gregory's right wing chained 30,000 oath-sworn infantry together. Kanatir's left anchored near Jabiyah Road, Darijan and Mahan holding the centre, while Jabla's mounted Arabs screened the front. 30 ranks deep, their camp stretched 18 miles. Abu Ubaidah, acknowledging Khalid's superior tactics, yielded battlefield command. "Obey Khalid's orders," he instructed generals. Khalid restructured the 40,000-strong force, 36 infantry regiments, 800 to 900 men each, 3 cavalry regiments, 2,000 each, and his 4,000-strong mobile guard. Deployment mirrored the Romans, Yazid's corps on the left at Yarmouk's banks, Amr's on the right at Jabiyah Road, Abu Ubaidah and Shurabil in the centre. Behind them, women and children stood with tent poles and stones. Abu Ubaidah's command was grim. "Strike deserters' faces. Show them their children. Demand they fight for Islam." Khalid rode down the lines, his voice cutting the August heat. "Steadfastness brings Allah's help. An army's strength lies not in numbers, but in divine aid." When a youth trembled at the Roman host, Khalid countered, "How few they are, for Allah forsakes the unjust." All night Muslims recited Surah Al-Anfal, the battle chapter, as campfires mirrored stars. Mahan extended final peace offers. Gregory offered wealth for withdrawal. Jabla appealed to Arab brotherhood. Khalid met Mahan between lines, offering the triad: Islam, jizya, or the sword. The Armenian chose war. As they parted, Khalid murmured to Abu Ubaidah, "Satan grips his reason." Dawn on August 15th, 636, Rajab 15th, 15 Hijri, would decide the fate of empires. As the first light bled over the Yarmouk plains, Roman General George spurred his horse toward Muslim lines, demanding to face the legendary sword of Allah. Khalid rode out, expecting a duel, but George posed a piercing question. "Tell me truthfully, did Allah send a celestial sword to your prophet? Is that why you bear this title?" Khalid's reply was swift. "No." He recounted how the prophet himself bestowed the honour after Khalid's conversion at Uhud. George fell silent, then asked, "To what do you call me?" Khalid's answer echoed across the field. "To witness there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." When George pressed further, Khalid offered the triad of choices: embrace Islam, pay jizya, or face the sword. After a weighted pause, George declared, "Then I accept your faith." To the astonishment of both armies, the Roman general rode beside Khalid to the Muslim camp, embraced Islam, and hours later died fighting heroically for his new creed. His body laid among the martyrs he once sought to destroy. The battle erupted at midday with Roman legions advancing in a steel tide. 10,000 infantry grinding forward under a hail of Muslim arrows. Swords clashed, spears splintered, yet the Roman thrust wavered. Conscripts faltered against desert-hardened veterans. By sunset, lines reformed with minimal losses. That night, Muslim women moved through the camp, wiping blood from brows and whispering, "Rejoice in tidings of paradise, O friend of Allah." Their words kindled resolve as warriors recited Surah Al-Anfal, the battle chapter, beneath star-flecked skies. Dawn on the second day shattered the calm. Mahan's surprise assault smashed into Muslim flanks, breaching Amr's right wing. Warriors retreated toward camp, only to collide with a wall of women wielding tent poles and stones. Hind bint Utbah struck her husband Abu Sufyan's horse, shouting, "Where do you flee? Show courage and be forgiven your sins against Allah's messenger." Others chanted verses from Uhud. "We are daughters of the night. If you advance, we embrace you. If you retreat, we forsake you." Shamed, the men wheeled back toward death. Khalid's cavalry struck like lightning, hammering Roman flanks until dusk restored the lines. Day 3 mirrored the struggle. Romans surging, women repelling retreat, soldiers gasping. Facing Romans is easier than facing our women. But the fourth dawn birthed horror. Mahan unleashed his archers upon Abu Ubaidah and Yazid's corps. Arrows blotted the sun like hailstones, striking 700 Muslims in the eyes. The lament, "O my eye, O my sight," swept the field as Abu Sufyan lost an eye. Amidst the carnage, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl rallied 400 men. "Swear the oath of death with me." They vowed to stand or perish. Ikrimah held the crumbling left flank, repelling waves until all 400 lay slain. Mortally wounded, he whispered to Khalid, "Does the son of Hantama think we do not get martyred?" As Romans pressed closer, women, led by Hind, Khawla and Hakim, charged forward with swords, screaming, "Strike the uncircumcised ones in the arm!" Their defiance ignited a fury in the Muslims. Warriors erupted as raging demons, hurling the Romans back in a storm of blades. Khawla fell, blood crimsoning her hair, yet by dusk she rose, smiling, to her brother Dirar's relief. On the fifth day, silence hung thick. Roman envoys offered truce, but Khalid rejected it. "We are in a hurry to finish this business." That night he forged all cavalry into an 8,000-strong hammer, the mobile guard its core. At dawn, Gregory of the Chained Army challenged Abu Ubaidah to single combat. The two generals duelled fiercely until Gregory feigned retreat. Abu Ubaidah pursued, then spun and struck the giant's neck, severing spine and hope. Khalid raised the signal. His cavalry tore into the Roman left, shattering Slavs into Armenians. Mahan's 40,000 horsemen fled north, abandoning the infantry to Khalid's trap. Cornered between advancing Muslims and the Wadi al-Rakad ravine, Romans stampeded toward the only ford where Dirar bin al-Aswar waited. Khalid had sent him overnight with 500 riders to block escape. Stones rained as Romans scrambled up the western slope. Dirar's men charged, driving the vanguard into the abyss. Screams cut short as bodies crashed against rocks, wrote chroniclers. By dusk, the ravine choked with corpses, priests still clutching crosses, soldiers tangled in chains. Khalid surveyed the field. 70,000 Romans dead, 4,000 Muslims martyred, and the wounded murmuring prayers through broken teeth. He pursued Mahan to Damascus, where citizens greeted him with the pact he'd sworn 2 years prior. Far north, Emperor Heraclius gazed towards Syria from the imperial border and lamented, "Farewell, O Syria! What a fine land I leave to the enemy." With the dust of Yarmouk settling on his cloak, Khalid turned south toward Jerusalem, the holy city where faiths converged and empires knelt. Abu Ubaidah's army rested at Jabiyah for a month, warriors binding wounds while spoils of war were gathered, counted, and divided under the watchful eyes of generals. When early October's winds whispered across Syria, a war council debated their next conquest, Caesarea's defiant port or Jerusalem's sacred stones. Unable to decide, Abu Ubaidah wrote to Caliph Umar. The reply was unequivocal: capture Jerusalem. Khalid's mobile guard led the march, their banners slicing through November's chill. At Jerusalem's gates, the Roman garrison retreated behind fortified walls, igniting a siege that stretched 4 months into winter's grip. Then Patriarch Sophronius extended an olive branch with a condition. He would surrender the keys only to the Caliph himself. Shurabil bin Hassana saw an opening. Umar and Khalid shared a striking resemblance. "Let Khalid pose as the Caliph," he urged. At dawn, Khalid donned simple robes like Umar's and rode to the citadel. But the ruse unravelled. Christian Arabs who had seen both men in Medina exposed the impersonation. Sophronius refused to parley. Word flew to Umar in Medina. The Caliph mounted his camel with a handful of companions, beginning the first of 4 journeys to Syria. At Jabiyah, Abu Ubaidah, Khalid, and Yazid greeted him. But Umar's eyes hardened at the sight. Khalid and Yazid glittered in silk and brocade, their horses draped in gold. The Caliph dismounted, scooped pebbles from the earth, and hurled them at the generals. "Shame! Is this how you greet me after 2 years of plenty?" he thundered. "By Allah, if you persist in such luxury after 200 years, I will replace you." Khalid and Yazid tore open their robes, revealing battle armour beneath. "We still carry our weapons, O Commander of the Faithful." Umar's anger cooled, and he embraced Abu Ubaidah, whose humility mirrored his own patched garments. In Jerusalem, Umar sat among companions as noon approached. Bilal, the Prophet's muazzin, silent since Muhammad's death, was implored to sound the adhan once more. At Umar's urging, Bilal stood. His voice, "Allahu Akbar," rolled over the multitudes. Tears streamed down weathered faces as memories of Medina's dawns flooded back. When he reached Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, the faithful broke into sobs. The next day, Sophronius surrendered the keys. Umar signed the pact, sparing Christian lives, protecting churches, forbidding Jewish settlement, with Khalid, Amr, Abdurrahman bin Auf, and Muawiyah as witnesses. After 10 days, Umar returned to Medina, leaving his commanders to unfold the final map of Syria. Yazid besieged Caesarea, Amr and Shurabil reclaimed Palestine and Jordan, while Abu Ubaidah and Khalid marched north with 17,000 men. Emesa welcomed them like prodigal sons. Qunasirine, however, demanded blood. At Hazir, 3 miles east, Roman general Minas attacked Khalid's vanguard, a fatal miscalculation. Khalid's cavalry butchered the entire force, leaving no survivor. Townspeople rushed out, pleading, "We are Arabs, we mean no harm." Khalid accepted their surrender. When news reached Umar, he sighed. "Khalid is truly the commander. May Allah have mercy on Abu Bakr. He judged men better than I." Qunasirine's garrison capitulated without a fight. Aleppo's general Joachim met Khalid 6 miles south of the city. Defeated in open battle, he scrambled behind Aleppo's moat. 4 months of siege and sallies passed before Joachim surrendered, then astonished all by embracing Islam. "I will fight under your banner," he vowed, becoming a loyal officer. Malik Ashtar, with Joachim beside him, secured Azaz on the road to Rome, clearing the northern flank. Abu Ubaidah now aimed for Antioch, the empire's eastern capital. 12 miles east, at Maruba's iron bridge spanning the Orontes, a Roman army barred the way. No chronicler recorded the battle's dance of blades, but by dusk the Romans lay shattered. On October 30th, 637, Antioch, jewel of the Asian provinces, surrendered. Muslim columns unfurled along the coast. Latakia, Jabla and Tartus fell like ripe fruit. As the year 16 Hijri waned, Khalid stood at Qunasirine, a sentinel gazing toward the Euphrates. Abu Ubaidah governed from Emesa, Syria now a tapestry of Muslim provinces. Only Caesarea held out, its defiance a whisper against the roar of conquest. But in the quiet of Qunasirine's watchtowers, Khalid could not know. The sword that carved an empire would soon be sheathed, not by an enemy's hand, but by the Caliph's decree. In the autumn winds of 638, Khalid led his mobile guard toward Marash in Roman Anatolia. The city's garrison trembled at his approach, surrendering without siege. "Take what wealth you will," they offered, "but spare our lives." Khalid returned to Qunasirine laden with spoils, a king's ransom that vanished like desert rain. True to his nature, he gifted 10,000 dirhams to Ashath bin Qais, a poet who praised his conquests, while warriors received shares that made them rich for life. But Medina's eyes watched. When Umar learned of the gift, fury ignited his austere soul. "Bring Khalid before the congregation," he commanded Abu Ubaidah. "Tie his hands with his turban. Ask, did he give from spoils or his own purse? If the first, he's a thief. If the second, a wastrel, then dismiss him. The order travelled with Bilal, the Prophet's muazzin, now grey and solemn. At Emesa, Khalid stood before a hushed crowd. Bilal's voice cut the silence. "Did you give Ashath 10,000 dirhams from spoils or your wealth?" Khalid, stunned, remained mute. Bilal stepped forward, removed Khalid's turban, bound his hands, and repeated the question. "From my own purse," Khalid finally declared. Bilal unbound him, retied the turban, and whispered, "We hear and obey our rulers." Khalid mounted his horse and rode to Chinasarine. Command stripped, legacy shadowed. Summoned to Medina, he met Umar in a dusty street. "You have been unjust," Khalid protested. Umar countered, "Whence came this wealth?" Khalid's reply, "My share of spoils," led Umar to inventory his possessions, armour, weapons, slaves. Valuing them at 80,000 dirhams, the Caliph confiscated 20,000, murmuring, "You are honourable in my eyes. You will not complain of me after today." Khalid returned to Emesa, a retired lion in a rented house. His pension, 3,000 dirhams yearly, could not sustain his open-handed generosity. Then plague struck. The breath of Amawas swept Syria in January 639, claiming Abu Ubaidah, Shurahbil, Yazid, and Khalid's dearest friend, Dirar. Worst of all, it took 40 of Khalid's sons. Only Sulaiman, Muhajir, and Abdurrahman survived, the last later poisoned by Muawiyah's envy. In those empty years, Khalid's heart softened toward Umar. "Praise Allah who took Abu Bakr, dearer to me than Umar," he told a visitor, "and praise him who appointed Umar, for though I hated him, I grew to love him." When fever gripped him in 642, he lay in bed, bearing a body mapped by war. "Do you see a hand span unmarked by sword or arrow?" As death neared, he lamented, "I die in bed, in shame. The eyes of cowards do not close even in sleep." When news reached Medina, Umar, who forbade wailing for the dead, heard women's cries in the streets. He took his whip, paused, then hung it back. In his daughter Hafsa's home, sobs echoed for the lost warrior. "Let the women of Bani Makhzum weep," Umar relented. "They do not lie. Over the likes of Abu Sulayman, let mourners grieve." Khalid was buried in Emesa, his tomb now a mosque where chandeliers glow above marble. The conqueror of empires rests, but his blade's shadow stretches across 14 centuries, etched in the annals of war as the undefeated general who forged a faith into a civilization.